I think that's, in the words of Coach Harry, that's illegal.
We'll just see when it comes to grand finals.
But this is not grand final prediction. You stink, man. Yes, this is not a prediction list. It's
but
not
even
a
seventh,
list.
I still think seventh's too low for a grand final.
30 years of her never stop me dreaming. It didn't come home, but we're home here. Another episode of Fantasia. The boys in the building. It's a bit sad for me and Harry, but you know.
It's a very happy for me. Don't worry.
Scotland, baby. We couldn't be happier to see the failures of the English. So
I think it was everyone that wanted to see the failures of the English. Honestly,
I think like the only time England is on top is literally in this podcast where you two are above us and we're below right now.
Brilliant.
Too soon.
Yeah, thanks for that, guys. Thanks. Well, yeah, enough about football. This isn't a football podcast, and I'm very glad it isn't. We have a bunch of Fortnite to talk about because the semi-finals are rapidly approaching, and we've been dying to talk about something interesting for quite a while now. So, on the menu today, we got some talk about the Esports World Cup, some drama happened we're going to get into. We got another top 5 game for you guys. You know, people enjoyed that last week. We're going to reset the scoreboard. So Harry's not in the lead. We're starting fresh now that Reese is here. And we've got, most importantly, we are doing some power rankings. We have, you know, compiled a list of the top 10 teams in each region. And we're going to discuss through it all. So, sound good to everyone?
Yeah, I can't wait for the OCE tier list that we got coming up. That's going to be...
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Where's the Asia representation? You know, that one guy in the comments.
The one guy that always talks about... There's another guy that talks about Middle East. Either way, if you're watching right now, subscribe to the channel. Be sure to keep showing some support. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, leave a review. Let us know what you think of the podcast. And please leave a 5-star review. Just please.
If we get 3 subscribers, we'll literally talk about OCE, I swer.
No, I promise you we will talk about OCE. Yeah,
we'll lose subscribers at that point.
We'll lose subscribers.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it. Let's start off with some big drama coming from the Fortnite Esports World Cup. We saw top players being dropped from their teams. We saw the likes of Veno being dropped from Carmine Corp. We saw Clix dropping Trashy from Exet. Things were getting crazy. It's all Clix's fault. Let's talk about it. What happened and how did things happen?
So you would expect that a lovely esport like the Esports World Cup to have a good set of rules concerning, you know, how you qualify to it and things like that. So essentially, a few days ago was the roster lock when it came to qualifying to the Esports World Cup. And what that means is you have to submit your roster in order to play in the Saudi Esports World Cup, even after you qualify. And in that roster lock, 3 out of the 4 people that qualified from Dallas or from the online qualifiers had to be in the original squad, which meant that, you know, that 4th person, there was room for maneuverability and room for people to get voted out. And with a lot of really good players like Cold, for example, not being qualified, that opened up opportunities for teams to pick up players like Cold or players on other teams as well.
So essentially, what ended up happening is as we got closer to that, you know, deadline, that roster lock, we saw people getting dropped. It all started off with Trashy. It all kicked off. It was so random. It was so out of the blue. I think it was the day before with Trashy. And essentially he just tweeted, "Got dropped for Saudi." Wow. And Twitter exploded. Everyone was like, what do you mean you got dropped for Saudi? Again, this whole like Esports World Cup ecosystem, like the whole ESL stuff, is very new to Fortnite, right? So we've had people get dropped from their duos and trios and whatnot, but like this definitely felt weird. We've not seen someone dropped for a LAN, which meant everybody was freaking out, like, what the hell? This is wrong. How could this happen? How is this even possible? How is this allowed? What did you guys make of it when you saw this tweet from Trashy?
I mean, it's Fortnite orgs being Fortnite orgs. I mean, I'm surprised. Obviously, I'm not surprised that it happened, but I'm more surprised it took this long for anything to happen. You know, it's one of those things that if there's better players out there, it happens all the time when it comes to duos. It happens all the time when it comes to orgs. It was only bound to happen. It was only a matter of time until it happened with the ESL rosters. And as a team, if you see players like Cold, who is one of the best players, if not the best player from North America at ESL, not going to the World Cup, why wouldn't you take the gamble to try and at least get a better player in your roster? And obviously it sucks for someone. It always will, but as a team, it makes that decision makes a lot of sense. It's like you can't let another org get Cold when you had the opportunity to yourself.
Yeah, and I think looking at this situation in particular with Trashy, because Muzz messaged me, because he was obviously one of the members of Xset which ended up dropping them, and he was like, am I a douchebag for doing this? Because if you don't know, essentially what happened was the 3 players on Xset ended up making the decision to essentially drop Trashy.
Wait,
if you don't know,
Clicks?
No. Well, I think he ended up like agreeing.
Clicks
I know we
can say he's the
he could have stopped it from happening.
Yeah.
He's the boss.
However, Muzz is playing with Trashy for Evans AS, and they've been doing really good this season. So I don't know what the dynamics are going to be like there, but I think, Harry, you're absolutely right. If you are an org and a team who's going to a Saudi, who is a massive, massive prize pool, not only for the individual teams, but for the organizations overall, you want to send the best team possible. And Cold is arguably one of the best ESL players in the world, but obviously he didn't qualify. Him opening up, let's be real, the chances that he is going to be worse than Trashy is very, very slim, in my opinion. So I think it actually, as rubbish as it is for Trashy as a player, and I feel really bad for him, the reality is this trade really makes sense when it comes for the team as a whole, both from the players and from like an organization perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It was really interesting, right? Because the initial reactions to Trashy being dropped, a lot of it was very much like what you sort of said at the end there, Reese, where people felt very bad for him. There were a lot of people, I think, sort of took things further and had the sentiment of like, this shouldn't be allowed. Like, this shouldn't be possible, that you grinded and you worked your way, you qualified for the event. You did everything you could to qualify for the event. You achieved what you set out to do, and you get dropped and you can't play. And a lot of people just found that concept like so wild. It was weird for me seeing that because, I've mentioned this a couple times on the show, I came from CS where like something like this is much more possible in CS. Now, again, CS is a game with better structure, a lot of times better rules, right? But there's been situations where like a 3-man core of a team in CS has decided, hey, we want to get rid of this player and we want to, pick up a different player. And it's like, for that player, a lot of the time, the reaction is unfortunate, but, you got dropped for a better player. So it's such is life. How could you blame the team for trying to turn down a better player? And I don't know if that's just like, I don't know if maybe I'm wrong and I'm missing something about why that's so different to like, CS or to this situation here with Trashy. Yeah. Or like, am I just cold-hearted? Do I not have a soul or is there something I'm missing? Or are people in Fortnite just like not used to this type of thing and so are overreacting to it?
Honestly, Levin, you're just a piece of shit, man. I finally had to say it, man. It's all, you're a piece of shit.
Thank God you did. Yeah.
I mean, I'm saying what we've all been thinking, pretty much. I know. To quote Malabuka, ironically enough, he said, missing the land that you worked and qualified for cannot be compensated. Pretty much. So I think the difference between the CSGO stuff and the thing for Fortnite and ESL is the fact that in CS, the orgs own the spot, right? Qualifiers, when they come to qualifiers for online tournaments, they come through from an organizational standpoint. They're still open qualifiers, but most of the time it's invite only, and there's not even qualifiers for CS most of the time. It's, hey, we're going to invite G2, we're going to invite Liquid, we're going to invite Fnatic, Na'Vi, all these orgs are being invited. In this case, these are individual players that just happen to be a part of a team. And when you're a part of those individual players that, have earned that spot, Xset didn't earn the spot. They might be an ESL partnered org, which frankly doesn't mean shit in the whole ecosystem because I don't think there's any benefit other than obviously the prizing stuff and the club rewards. So in this situation, this guy Trashy qualified. He flew out to Dallas. Obviously, maybe Xset paid for it, which is another discussion. And then he put his work and he made it. And now that he's made it, all of a sudden he can no longer play. So I think it's interesting to think about how it develops from here, because obviously this can't happen again, or players are going to be more aware of this happening now, or there's going to be things, hopefully, for Trashy and people like Veno, you mentioned, something in the contract that helps them out, or something that the Esports World Cup can change that helps them out as well, because players aren't protected right now.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the key things to highlight, right? Is that like after the whole aftermath of like people freaking out about this, I think Exit did come out and say, or at least Feldy, or maybe Trash, I can't remember who, but someone did come out and say he's going to be taken to Saudi still. Like if he wants to come, like he will be allowed to come with the team, and he's still being compensated. Like he's going to be paid in some way. We don't know whether that's a percentage of pricing, whether it's to do with like salary bonuses or whatever. We don't know what that quite is, but they said he's going to be compensated.
Apparently, it's so one of the, I don't know if it's, I didn't verify this was the actual manager of Exit, but it was a guy called Exit Ryan was in my chat, and he was speaking very confident. But he said that he's getting, it's going to be a 20% split of prize pool, so 1/5, 1/5, 1/5, 1/5 of the pricing that they get in Saudi, which is debatable as well whether or not that's the right move, because you know you're taking away the experience of playing, which I think is worth more.
Yeah,
I agree.
It's tough, right? Because yes, you know you can't replace that, and I think especially in the world of Fortnite, where like these types of experiences are so, you know, few and far between. We don't get many lands like this. We don't get Saudi lands. We don't get lands in general for the most part. And so taking that experience away is very hard to replace. Whereas in like, you know, if a player gets traded on the sports team a lot of the time, it's like their salary is guaranteed. And, you know, these things happen much more often, right? They get more experiences much more often, blah, 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 blah. The thing I'll say as well, to be fair, in CS, there have been some experiences where I think more often than not, orgs own spots because they have a lot of closed tournaments now. But there are loads of examples in CS where like it's like the 3-man core, so you can swap an org, but it's about the 3-man core of a roster having that control. And I think it is just unfortunate, right, for him in that like you kind of just got screwed. Do you think this decision would be more palatable had it not been it came from the players and it came from management at Exit? So if it was like, you know, the team's controlled by an Exit manager, and the Exit manager decided we're going to swap out Trashy for Cold, rather than it being the 3 players on the team saying we don't want Trashy anymore.
I think that's
I don't
less
think that's
palatable.
Yeah, exactly, because it would be a decision which is like the players don't even feel it's the right decision. You know, it's like at the end of the day, it sucks for Trashy. We all agree it sucks, but it, you know, this happens in sports and esports. If your team doesn't feel you're a good enough player, they will replace you with someone better. And I think that is just sadly how it is. And obviously it completely sucks because he has grinded and worked so hard to get to Saudi. But if the team feels there's a better player out there, they have every right to replace him with a better player. I think it's I wouldn't say fair is the right word, but it's understandable from the players completely.
It is, but I also feel like the timing of when the team lock comes in is what makes this really bad, because you know, the reality I feel here is that if you're going to do qualifiers, say in DreamHack or online, you have to lock your roster, I'd say, the time you play the first qualifier, if you've qualified this, of course. Like the teams who qualified from DreamHack, when they went there and they started playing there, unless there was something like, say, the Anas situation where he had to kind of take over for whoever it was who couldn't get their visa for Swizzy, couldn't get their visa. Like, unless you've specifically stated something like that ahead of time, I feel like at that point that's when it region lock, Jesus, we're fucking too much Fortnite, swear to God. Because imagine, I think about this in, say, like a football terms, because we've, you know, why not? We just had the Euros. Imagine like the England team who's just made it through to finals. Obviously, they got people on the bench and whatnot. Just pretend they weren't there. You get to finals. You've played all the way through all these other earlier rounds, and then right when it comes to the finals, they just go, you know what? Let's get rid of random fucking goalie, get someone else in instead. We think he's better because he'll do better here. You know, the opportunity of playing in that level of event is just snatched away from you at the time when you have been the one that put in work to help qualify to that level. And I think like future tournaments, I think trying to trying to lock and restrict the teams that you have has to be done at an earlier stage rather than once you've already qualified through. Like, I just don't think that makes any sense.
So to play devil's advocate to what you're saying there, though, that like I feel like it's dependent on like how you segment the stages. So in the football example you gave, the team to play at the Euros, England have to play a qualifier. Let's qualifiers before to qualify for the Euros. The roster they had for that is not the same roster they have to take to the Euros.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'd say to, you know, like the actual Saudi LAN itself is segmented. It's like different to the qualifiers beforehand, especially since we had like on offline qualifiers and online qualifiers. And so the argument I'd make was, do you have to have the same team for the online qualifiers that you had to for the actual LAN? Some people would probably say yes. Even when I think about it, I'd probably say yes. I'd rather it be that it's the same. Like you have at least some sort of a lock there. But that's why I feel like it's different. It's like I feel like you can change depending on like the segment of the tournament. You know,
it is. Yeah, I just feel like for almost anything, it should be as early as possible. You know, thinking the way we've got like global championships now. Yeah. I'm saying this, but I'm pretty sure they can switch teammates from global championships to other people who are qualified. But that's also switching with other people who are qualified, not other people who are not qualified. You know, it's a completely different way to do it. It's almost like, imagine you win FNCS in Chapter 5 Season 1, and then it comes to go to global championships, and you're like, I want to play my IRL and take him out with me instead. You know, that's more like the equivalent of it, which I think just something feels wrong about that. Like, I understand from an org perspective, like I said, totally understand the decision. Like if Cold's available, hell yeah, we're picking up this guy, no questions asked about it. But I just think something morally feels wrong about dropping a player who worked hard to qualify through to finals, even though he's getting money from it.
It's morally wrong.
It's also the manner of which you do it too, right? The day of roster lock for a lot of people. I mean, for the Veno example, we will talk about in a bit, is an hour before roster lock as well, right? And if these are all accomplished players that have qualified, and then there's other teams out there that maybe would want these players, but if you're dropping them the day of, you don't have enough time to sign contracts, to get negotiating, to get your name out to the, hey, I'm available now to play. You're basically just cooked out of it. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah, I think that's where some of the problem came as well. Even we'll move on to the Venom one in a sec, but like even with the Trashy one, where it's like he drops the announcement message, there isn't anything official from Xset actually said about like the decision making or anything about it. I don't think Xset still have said like an official statement about it.
Just a Feldy tweet, that's it.
Yeah, so it's like I feel like there's a way you have to do things that makes situations like this feel not as bad. And so when you got a player like the day before, like you're saying, where it's just like day before Russell and he's like dropped. That sucks. Like that to me is
also the player is not in the conversation. It seems like, right, for Veno and Trashy, they tweeted it like they were blindsided about it. Especially Trashy, like, "Yo, I just got dropped for Saudi," and then before he knew he was getting compensated, everyone's like, "Oh, they should compensate you. They compensated." And then Feldy came out with a tweet like, "Yeah, we're going to compensate you." So like that wasn't even in the question until after like public response and all that stuff that. Trashy, yo, we're going to compensate you for this happening. Otherwise, it would have been like, yo, Trashy, we're dropping you for Cold. And then Trashy internally would have been like, yo, yeah, what now? Like, the player has to be at some point in the discussion. I feel like a rule that could be good maybe is like the player has negotiating power. Like, yo, if the player, they can say no in this case. Like, you can drop a player, but they can say no unless X happens. And then Saudi or like the ESWC can be involved in that sort of negotiation. If you really want to put it like a professional level and make it legitimate, like have that player have some sort of negotiating power. Otherwise, every single player is just going to get dropped, you know? Like, I mean, there's even sometimes there's players, for example, that are only in a team because they're in a specific org, right? Like, I know that happened with a lot of people that, hey, we want this guy in a team because they were probably going to get signed by like, you know, NIP or Heretics or all that stuff. And then those guys aren't even protected anymore.
Yeah, no, 100%. One thing I want to say about the time as well is you don't even give time to like practice if it's actually a better change, you know? So it's like they're not even changing for what they know will work better for the team. They're actually just changing for what like might. It's all on like a potential what could end up being better for the team, right? And I think, as you said, like doing it the day before sucks for the player. It doesn't give the player able to try out with other teams, like to actually see around, see if there's options. But as you said, but also it's like, you don't even give yourself time to practice with the new player you want to try out with. Because if they went to Trashy like 3 weeks earlier or like 2 weeks earlier and went, yo, we're going to try out some players for your spot, you know, this is just the way we think, like we think we can get a better, you know, we might be able to get a better player, then maybe it would have been more understandable and Trashy's like, okay, XL looking for options, I'm looking for a team for Saudi, and then it would have seemed a lot more professional in that way.
The qualifier was 3 days before roster lock for reference, so there's not much time to actually actively practice, and maybe that's also a thing about the organization. Like, you know, maybe we should have. I mean, why is the roster lock like what was it? So it was like 4 days ago. EWC is in like 3 weeks from now, or something like that. Like, maybe some better timing potentially there.
No,
I think,
100%,
but again, it's. I feel like this is all in the theme of how this has gone down in general, where everything just feels very last minute and very because I'm sure someone from EWC would respond and say we need time for visas and this and that to sort out. So like, they'd argue we needed time on this side, so we pushed it closer to the qualifier. We'd argue, well, we need more time on out after the qualifier because there's implications after the qualifier. I mean, it is a lot.
I mean, getting a visa to Saudi is like the easiest thing in the world. If
Cannot
you're
be hard.
running a tournament hosted by the Saudi government,
True. That is a good point. But I'm sure there's organizational factors that mean that you need weeks. Like you can't just qualify people, lock people a week before the event. Like that doesn't make sense.
No, 100%.
Especially with like flights and shit. Veno though.
Yeah.
Veno. He got dropped, but for like a different reason, and his one was even weirder. I feel like in some Trashy's one made a bit more sense because it was like cold. It's cold, man. It's cold. Like I mean, it is cold. The Veno one was really really weird. Do we have the tweets? Can we get up the tweets and sort of start off with what happened? So this sort of came after a lot of the drama, but Carmine Corp Police did give us an official announcement, and they said. ESWC update, Fortnite ESL team with immediate effect, Anas will replace Veno in the active roster for the EWC 4v4 format. This decision was taken by the coaching staff and the players following a difference of opinion on involvement and methods to close the competition. Close to the competition. Yeah. Essentially, Veno, at least he said he got dropped like, 30 minutes before? Like he found out 30 minutes before?
Yeah.
An hour before. He found out an hour before through the Discord, not through people directly telling him. Was that what you said?
There was two stories out there. It was the first story came from Pink that he found out from the document of the roster lock. For some reason, it's open to everyone to see or something. What ended up happening, I believe, is that his agent, sent him a message an hour before roster lock, like saying, "Yo, we need to talk." And then he found out that way. So I think from Veno, I DM'd him and asked him about it. It came from his agents.
Okay. So the message was given to his agent, and he was told that he wasn't the sort of like the sort of conversation around it was essentially, when they say differences in opinion on involvement and methods close to the competition, essentially they felt like Veno had missed too many practices or he wasn't committing enough time to practice. I think on the day of Rockstar Lock they had scrims planned, and Veno was playing in like a tournament. Like a 10K creative tournament or something like that.
Box fight.
It's interesting because when Veno moved to NA, that was one of the things we talked about here of like KC better qual for the World Cup at Dallas, because how are they going to play with Veno in NA and all the guys in EU, practice with all the guys in EU, Veno in NA? Like clearly things haven't been working. That relationship has been deteriorating since then, and it reached its boiling point an hour before the roster lock. It was funny, Boot, because not many people saw this, but I sent to you and in our group chat because I saw a tweet from the coach of Carmine Corp. Yeah, Oslo. I saw a tweet from Oslo an hour before the roster lock, and he tweeted like at Anas, check DMs. And I remember I was like, and he quickly deleted it. So he tweeted it and he quickly deleted it. And I remember I saw it, I screenshot it, and I sent it to our group chat, and I said, "Boop, like, is this what I think is happening?"
I instead dropped in capital letters because I felt like I knew it was happening.
Like, why do they need Anas an hour before roster lock? Something's very suspicious here. And then, like 30 minutes later, everything started to kick off. So, what did you guys make of this situation?
Yeah, I mean, this is completely, in my opinion, completely different to the Trashy situation. First of all, this is a team that was already qualified like ages before the closed qualifiers. Dallas, so they qualified through Dallas, so they would have known of these practice issues like weeks in advance. This isn't something that just, as you said, like they had a scrim session on the day of roster lock, and then they go, "Oh, we should then just drop him." It's like, no, you've known this for a while. You know this has been a problem since he's been in America. The fact then they decide, okay, we're going to drop him. First of all, like from what's been said is, as you said, Boop, he didn't even get told that he was getting dropped. Second of all, it's an hour before the roster lock, so it gives him, again, no time to find another team. And then thirdly, I just think it's completely ridiculous what like Oslo, to me, is coming out and saying. The things that he believes he's in the right because of the fact that he was missing some of the practice, which obviously you don't want to miss any practice, of course, but this is something that could have been solved behind the scenes way before an hour before the roster lock.
Well, what you say on that is interesting because Vino says, I learned at this time. There was an Archie tweet, and I don't know if this is like just bait or not, because it's an Archie tweet, so you never know, where it was he retweeted his own tweet talking about how KC dropped Vino, he's later best player, blah, blah, blah. Then the tweet he said was, I've been told that Vino got warned for weeks and weeks, rip. Now, the response of Vino underneath that is hilarious. So my assumption is that's utter bullshit, basically.
Yeah.
So I assume that's just absolutely not true whatsoever. And again, then it goes back to like the methodology of how are you switching and dropping these teams? What's the communication been like so far? If it's just been nothing and he's not been able to practice being at the distance, being in other tournaments, timelines not being able to line up and stuff, that's just like an absolutely stupid drop at that point.
So I also made a tweet myself talking about it because I thought it was interesting, and it was responded to by Oslo saying pretty much, yo, you guys don't know the full story. Message me if you want to get the full story, pretty much. So I did, I investigated, and what it came down to is essentially this. So from Veno's side, Veno hasn't heard anything from KC at all. Since the whole thing started, right? He apparently Malabuka went on holiday and they were going to practice after that, but then some practice was missed, and then essentially he didn't know much other than that. I do think this was all done in haste because obviously they saw Trashy get dropped for cold, and even Malabuka responded with like, "You can't do this. Like a player can be compensated." And all of a sudden, ding! Wait a second, we can drop a player all of a sudden, and now they think, okay, well Veno's not practicing, let us get a NAS. So. From what Oslo told me in DMs, essentially their justification for it was this: Veno was missing practice. They sent his agent, not Veno, his agent, countless messages telling him that Veno should be practicing, he should be locking in because they want to practice. To which I don't know if there was any response, but Veno said he didn't get any messages. So is this on the agent's fault that he never messaged Veno? I don't know, because the only message that he said he got was an hour before, and essentially an hour before, like Levin said, he saw Oslo send a message, yo, Anas, read your DM, and that was probably to sign Anas to a contract. Now, the interesting part about it was, at least the way that they justified it, because I said, yeah, okay, sure, if Veno was missing practice, there's no issue, but how can you make it happen an hour before, right? And he said, well, it doesn't matter, because if Veno wanted to join Agent anyways, Agent was interested in Veno wanted to join Agent, so it's no problem. He can play with Veno, he can play with Agent under KC as an org, and then they can negotiate him afterwards. And then I responded to him saying basically, well, that's not fully true, because why would you message Anas 2 hours before if you didn't need to sign the player before? And then he kind of ignored that one and said, yeah, but no problem, Agent's gonna get him anyways, and then there was another tweet now afterwards where Okus got dropped by Agent all of a sudden because they saw Veno got dropped by KC. And then 20 minutes later, you know what? Never mind, we're not dropping Okus and Agent because apparently you needed to be signed to the org before roster lock actually happened. I still don't know what actually is necessary if you need to be signed to the org before roster lock happened, but the fact that they messaged Anas 2 hours before in urgency saying, yo, Anas, read your messages quickly, makes me think that you kind of need to be signed to an org before roster lock happens, because otherwise why would they rush it, It makes no sense to me. So I don't think their justification for it was fully there, even if they do believe it. If Veno was slacking, fair play, drop him, sure, but not in the way that it happened.
I also think go for 11.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, like, the part I find interesting about that story is the dynamic between Oslo talking to the agent, talking to Veno, because there's also, it depends on how you're messaging.
It wasn't even Oslo messaging the agent, apparently. It was KC. That's what Veno said. It wasn't even Oslo himself messaging it. Apparently, KC is messaging. I don't know how that works, but yeah, go ahead.
The main Twitter account reaching out.
Veno's not practicing. Yeah, I don't know.
No, so that dynamic I find interesting, because that is where a lot of the nuance of how interesting this turns out. Because if KC are messaging,
he lost it.
That's hilarious face 1 minute ago.
Oh my god! Okay, you're back.
Anyway,
you're back.
I'm back. My internet's been cutting out recently. Lovely stuff. I need to get contact about it. So like, if that communication is like, "Hey, scrim or we will drop you," that's one thing. But if it's just like, hey, practice, hey, you could come and practice, those are two totally different things as well. You know, how severe the messaging is back and forth. Ultimately, it doesn't make a difference at the end of the day, but how severe that messaging is actually makes a difference of how well you've been warned ahead of time, whether you're going to get dropped or not.
Yeah, I think this situation highlights a bunch of issues, like a load of issues within how this ecosystem currently works, and like some organizational things. So one of the first big things that comes to mind is like a problem here, clearly, is just a basic understanding of like human relationships, in many ways. Like when you, again, to compare to other esports and to sports, right? When you recruit a player, you know, a lot of the time you have to get an understanding of who that player is, right? Because the way everybody works differently, right? The way I communicate to Harry about certain issues is different from the way I'll communicate to Reese about certain issues. They might both have the same issue, but because I know them, I might get the message across in a different way because I understand those people. Clearly, these people didn't understand how to get through to Veno, which is a failure on their part, right? He's your player that you picked up, you recruited him, you signed him to a contract, he is under your duty of care, and you didn't understand how to best communicate with him. As someone who knows Veno personally, trying to get a message through someone to him is not the way you talk to him. Like, that's just not, you're not going to get a message through to him across. People say, oh, it's his agent fault for not getting that message across, blah, blah, blah. We can talk about it, we'll get to that. But ultimately, to me, it seems weird that somebody directly involved in the team's day-to-day actions didn't have that kind of conversation with Veno to say, hey, we don't like how, you know, it's already an awkward situation of you being on NA, like you missing practices. It's just making everything very uncomfortable right now. Like, you need to be there for practice. Otherwise, we're going to have to start looking for solutions. That in itself goes back to what you were saying, Boop, of like, clearly, like, it was a light bulb moment. Clearly, they hadn't been thinking about dropping him for ages. Maybe they were unhappy with the practice shit for ages, but they didn't think about even dropping him until they saw the trashy shit, like, the day before. Another really big problem for me that I see here is, like, the problem of, like, not actually being able to like look at the situation and think, okay, if this is a decision I'm gonna make, then how do we like execute this like the best way to not leave him in a bad position? Because yeah, like that aspect of like you're mentioning of like, yeah, like he was interested in agents, so you know, we just thought we'll let that cook. Like come on, like like if this is gonna be the decision you make, I feel like as an org, the best possible way to go about it would be, okay, we're going to do this. Let him know, look, we're going to do this because, you know, we're tired of this situation with you. Let's, like, this is what you need to do now if you still want a chance to, like, at least give him the help. But again, it just seems like he was just left in the wind with not enough time to actually react, which to me, you know, doesn't make a lot of sense. Another problem here, again, comes from the player side. I've mentioned problems on the org side. From the player side of things, from Veno's side of things, if we are being honest, like, how do I say this? What's like the best way to put this? Not like social awareness, but like having that awareness of, hey, I'm in an uncomfortable position because I'm on a region, I'm missing practices. I think Veno had said online a bunch that, like, you know, he didn't feel like the practices were important because he had conversations with, like, I think it was Malabuka or Mustache, one of them, and they also expressed the same thing of like, these practices are whack anyway, like we shouldn't be doing these practices, right? But again, it's like, well, somebody didn't feel that way because these practices are the reason you're on the team no more. So there's been miscommunication there. Like, if I'm Veno, I need to get as much clarity on this as possible. I need to be aware of, hey, people on my team don't feel awkward about this. How can we best resolve this? Now, if I was to defend Veno there, he probably didn't think this could lead to him being dropped, because I don't think most people would think it would lead to you being completely dropped. But again, it's just something that I feel like you could have done better in that situation to avoid being where you are here.
No, 100%. I think the biggest thing that I want to take away is, as you said, the communication side of things. Like, if you're, as you're saying, it's going from one person to the next person to the next person. That's not it's not a team environment. You know, how hard is it as a coach to message a player? How hard is it? You should have relationships with your players.
Surely there's a Discord group, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Team commune core ESL. Yo, Veno, start fucking practicing. Boom.
Yeah, like how hard is it? It's like, to be able to coach effectively, you need to have some form of relationship with the player to understand how they learn and process information to be able to actually make them better players. If you don't have that, then how are you ever going to improve as a team as a whole? And it kind of leads to like a them versus us sort of like mentality where it's like everyone was having their own calls, like, you know, also, and everyone is like, oh, Vino's not coming to practice, this and that. And Vino's just left in the dark, not knowing anything. And it's not that hard to just message someone on Discord and just go, yo, we literally just need you to play practice. We are really struggling here. We need to get you into practice. It's crazy. To me, it's just insane. Like, if that is actually what's happened and the communication line was that and no one reached out to him and he's been left in the dark completely, that is one of the most insane team environments I've ever seen, where you're just like, you can't even just message your own teammate or your own like player as a coach and just go, yo, we need you for practice.
It's weird because it's like, I saw a lot of KC fans who were very much like, as a professional, if you're missing practice, it's an obvious da-da-da-da-da-da. Like, how can you miss practice and how can you be surprised that you've been dropped, that because you've been missing practice, you're a professional, you should show up all the time, blah, blah, blah. Which, that is fair, right? That's not like, that's not wrong. But I feel like when you look at this situation fairly, how can you not acknowledge like massive incompetence, you'd probably say, from Karmine Corp of like, how do you let it get to this situation? Like, there's no way it should have even gotten to this situation, right? It should have either been nipped in the bud. Like, even now, I feel like I'm missing something. Like, I feel like there's some sort of key event or detail that I'm missing that is very much like, because what we've heard from both sides laid out, I'm still at the sort of stage where I'm like, okay, but did this really have to lead to him being dropped? Like,
I was going to say,
an hour before,
you know what I mean? An hour before, did this lead to him being dropped? An hour before, like,
you can take the team out of Fortnite, but you can't take the Fortnite out of the team, I guess, right? Like, at the end of the day, like, it's a team manager that's in the Fortnite scene, it's players in the Fortnite scenes, and we're talking about the Fortnite community where people get snaked before FNC's grand final was the day before or some shit, you know, like, or Heats or whatever. Like, there's so much stuff in there that people just can't talk to each other in Fortnite. I don't know what it is, man. They literally have no communication at all between all of them at all. It doesn't work. I don't know.
They all believe the grass is always greener. Like, it's always just drop someone to make a solution better than trying to work through it and figure out what the problems are and how to fix it. It's just the Fortnite scene as a whole. Absolutely,
like in every single way. And as someone who's not watched as much of the ESL stuff, I think this may be a question for you lot. How impactful was Vino on that team? You know, obviously in BR, he's the GOAT, close to, not really, but you know, in that conversation. How is he in ESL? Like, is dropping him from this team for a NAS, who obviously a NAS is insane, is this a net positive or a net loss?
I'd probably say it's a net loss. It's because it's also the role that I believe he plays the burst role, which is the one that's the highest fragging role anyway. So it's not like you're dropping a sniper. So I think there is a bit of adaptability. I don't think Anas would probably take over that role. They're probably swapping up the actual roles itself to give maybe someone like Swizzy the right role or something. I don't know. Is it going to affect the performance? Probably. If they kept Veno without practice, would have made much different at Saudi? Honestly, I think it's probably just the same. I think it's not worth the drama.
So that's what I was gonna hit on with in response to you, Reese. Is like, does this move change their overall circumstances at Saudi? I think you can look at it. Some people arguing that positive, negative, whatever. But does this actually change where I think they're likely to place at Saudi? No, like, it's a sideways move to me.
It's not cold.
Sure.
Like,
at least with Exet, you actually make the argument that this is a team that probably would have been in like 5th to 7th or whatever the fuck. And with getting cold now, you actually have a chance. I don't necessarily are, but you actually have a chance because you're bringing in like a game-changing level player. Like in the case of KC, it feels like a very sideways move. And ultimately, I don't think, even from their statement, like, it's not like they've made this move to try and level up, right? It's like they made this move based off of the statement. They made this move because of toxic environment almost, right? They said there was disagreements around the method, right? Disagreements about how we should practice and things of that nature, right? Which never signal, when you hear those types of statements from like orgs and sports, like, that never states to me, oh, like, this was something we did to try and get better. It was like, this is something we felt like we needed to do to improve the environment, which is you know, hopefully it does. I mean, yeah, I guess you're not going to have much problems with Anas, mate. It's fucking Anas. So
You're not gonna. He's not known to be argumentative, is he?
Anas ain't kicking off. Yeah,
Him and
so.
Swizzy are going at it crazy. You know?
Yeah, I doubt it. And any more like thoughts on the sort of situations with people being dropped?
So, you know, when I saw a lot of the drama coming out about this, I sat and I just thought, my actual immediate thought, which isn't actually as relevant since we've talked through it and since things have settled as much, I was like, man, orgs in Fortnite, what benefit have they really given us ever? You know?
Yeah.
We keep pushing for, well, I'm not, but like a lot of people are pushing for orgs to be more involved in Fortnite, and the more they get involved, usually the worse. Like there doesn't seem to be much benefit.
I think in the case of like, I really felt that I've not felt that much of late, and I'm probably about to make a bunch of enemies now. I only really felt that when reading the replies of like KC fans, like the hardcore KC fans, like. And again, it's like a lot of these people are just so disconnected
Go at
from
him.
Fortnite.
Go at that guy.
Yeah.
My name is Coach Harry on Twitter at Coach Harry _. A lot of those guys just clearly are very disconnected from Fortnite, and so I understand their frustration because from the games they probably follow, they're like what is the situation? But like again, Fortnite is just so unique in that like I feel like you got when you come into Fortnite, you have to, you know, respect it and take it for what it is and not try and treat it and act like it is something else because it's not, unfortunately. So
fortunately.
Oh yeah.
Fortunately,
for us, yeah. Unfortunately, probably for them. So
it gives us stuff to talk about. So
yeah,
for
sure.
Only interesting thing to happen this week anyway. So
yeah, true. Let's do the top 5 game. I'm ready to play. Last week it was a lot of fun to do it. Harry won last week. Boop came.
I was not here,
second.
so Harry did not win. There was Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse rubbish. You guys made up.
Join up the links. Boop's in. I can see everyone. So the way we run it, guys, we have like for the people listening, we got like a whole setup to like automate it, and it's all nice and all quick. Everything's lovely. And then we can just give you the responses. I'm still waiting for Reese to join up. Reese ain't joined up.
I've clicked join.
Okay. I'm still not seeing Reese. I'm getting a bit
nervous. I'm feeling a bit of tension here.
I don't get nervous, but I'm starting to get a little bit shaky. You know what I mean?
Click validate.
Maybe refresh because I see Boop and Harry, but I don't see you.
Okay,
Either way,
there's always one.
Reese is messing up again.
While
I'm going to join. I've typed in the code, copy and pasted it perfectly. Clicked validate. Am I there now?
Reese is in.
Okay.
Now. Reese is in.
Maybe the refresh worked.
Okay, the refresh worked. Can I start? Or do I need to wait for Quartz? I think I need to wait for Quartz to join, and he's not joined, so that's a bit awkward. Okay, he's joining now. Brilliant. He took him some time. For the people watching, be sure to play along, play at home. Once the question is there, write up your answers and take note, and we will reveal the answers at the end. The question for this week is, which active Fortnite org has the most earnings? Which active Fortnite org has the most earnings? Get your answers in. You ain't got long to get your answers in.
So, are they all earnings that were earned whilst they were in the org, or is it
earnings? So earnings that were earned while the player was on that org, yes.
Right.
But the earnings don't necessarily like. So, for example, all the players that got those earnings might be off the org now. But because one person is still in that org is active, so that org counts.
So it's not like Booga's World Cup earnings are counting towards Dignitas then?
No, yeah, Booga's World Cup earnings don't count towards Dignitas.
That changes a lot.
So get your top 5
I need to. Who are even some orgs in Fortnite?
Wait, he's research. He's research.
I've opened a Word document.
No researching.
Opened a Word document to write down orgs.
I can't lie, guys.
Actually, I need to think. Yeah,
I'm giving you.
Can I even think of Fortnite orgs?
I can't think of 5 Fortnite orgs,
bro.
I can't think of 5 Fortnite orgs.
You guys got 30 seconds to get your answers in.
Okay.
Who
have big players been on?
Just lock in. Just looking at Harry, you look so
Hey.
stressed.
I'm so stressed. I can't think of any orcs.
Nobody's locked in.
I
Why is
don't-
it taking you guys so long? Just write your answers.
Because I can't think of 5 orcs. I can't think of 5 orcs.
Oh, yo, it's stressing.
Bro's panicking. Bro is panicking, bro.
I
Chill
am
out.
actually, my mind is so blank.
Chill
I'm
out.
Genuinely, I just says boop smells here from the protest. That's the
I have
Mine just
two
had
orcs.
penis pop up. That's it.
I
Yeah.
have,
Okay, there you go. I got mine
Okay.
in.
wait,
So-
I'm locked in.
you've actually
I'm not
got-
winning this one.
I've thought of
Uh,
5 orcs, Harry. I've done my job, man.
Nobody's
I
even-
can't do my job. I can't. Hold
I
on,
locked in.
let me-
Are you sure you're
let me-
locked? I don't see your. I don't
Yeah,
see
it
your
says answer
responses.
submitted.
Oh, I don't. Okay.
Oh no, it's all
Cool.
going tits
hold
up.
on.
Do I
Course.
refresh and do it again?
Cool. So you might have a
Bro, I
problem
can't
if
even
don't
think of
see
4
that.
orcs.
No, like I've got some, but there's no way they.
I see yours, Quartz, but I don't see anyone's. We can just scrap it. We can just do it like normally then, and I'll just read out the answers. I can get everyone's answers.
There's
Should I
no
send
way
it to
that's
Quartz?
not.
Bro.
a real
No.
answer.
We'll forget. We won't. We'll scrap the graphics then because it's not working.
Me,
I'll just. Okay.
me
Bruce's
and
gonna
Reese
refresh
are
the chat.
struggling. I can't.
I
just
literally
do not
have 3
point
orgs.
I have 3.
How do you guys
three
only think of
orgs.
3 orgs, guys? Come on, man.
No,
What's
I
going
can
on?
think of them, but they're no way in the top 5. So I'm just not even like. I can think.
What is going on? Cool. So let's scrap the graphics. I'll just read. We'll just read them out because it's
Don't-
not working.
yeah.
We'll just read them
Yeah,
out. Okay. Boop. What was your top 5?
Whoa,
I gotta
hold
retime
on.
my hold on because
Hold
I've
on.
lost my answers now.
Hold
Well,
on.
Boop.
I haven't even got my answers.
You got a lock. No, you're locked. You're locked now. Everyone's locked. You got.
Well, no, they're not.
We're
I
locked.
know
No,
we're
no,
not.
you're locked. Everyone's locked.
Well, no, we're not.
Everyone's locked. Boop.
Apparently we're
Hold
not. Apparently going to him.
Boop.
Well,
Your top
let
5.
me get my answers and hold on. This or
I don't remember what I wrote now. Oh,
my
my god.
God.
Hold on a second.
Oh,
Okay.
we're not
that
doing this
one-
again. We're not doing this again. This is the last time we're doing
I mean,
this.
I had it, and then I lost it all.
Think.
What was the last org that I had? Oh my god.
Reese, are you locked at least?
I am,
Okay, I have it.
but like,
Okay, I
it's
have it.
just utter bullshit.
Okay.
Like,
Okay, I got it.
do you want me to go through mine?
Okay, we'll start with Reese. Let's go, Reese.
Right. So I basically just named 5 orgs
Okay.
and hoped for the best.
So start
So-
from 5 to 1. Let's go.
5 to 1, I just put Exit because we were talking about them.
Okay.
These are the worst answers.
Exit, KC,
Oh no.
Falcon, Dignitas, Wave.
I forgot
Okay.
Falcons.
Oh,
Oh
no.
my god. I
Boop.
forgot Falcons.
Boop. What's your top
So I
5?
did 5th place Guild, 4th
Oh,
Elite
yeah.
Esports, 3rd Wave, 2nd Solari, and 1st Falcons.
I forgot.
Okay.
Solari World Cup.
I can't believe I forgot
Okay,
fucking
okay.
Falcons.
Harry, what's your top 5?
Well, I submitted it, so now I can't find it. So, well, it was Wave, Guild, Solari, and then it was Ovation, and it was
What is bro
Dignitas.
cooking?
Dignitas. Okay, so you guys did terribly this week. You guys did,
Yeah, like I can't.
You
I
guys-
literally can think.
you guys did terribly this week. Somebody did window, so I'm gonna read out the top 10. Okay, so I'll read out the top 10 for you guys. In 10th place is Ait. They have 781,000 earnings. By the way, I want to thank Zenko for this list. We used a Zenko list last week. We're using a Zenko list again this week.
This is
If any of these are wrong, shout out Zenko. But thank you, Zenko, for the list. We love you. So Ait in 10th place. In 9th place is Dignitas. Dignitas are in 9th
Oh, they're
place
my
on
second.
the earnings leaderboard. Solary are in 8th place.
Oh,
Ooh.
fuck it. So
They
those
sucked
are,
at
those
World
are
Cup.
Yeah.
these are my safe answers. So
7th
now we're
place
fucked.
are in Wave. Oh, Wave are in
Whoa.
7th place, sorry.
We're so I'm getting
My
none
first.
In 6th place is Galaxy Racer.
Oh,
no,
What
Yeah.
about-
Are
they
they
made a
active
lot.
or-
They're not active
They're
anymore.
not
They've just
active.
scammed.
Scammers.
Well,
That's
so
what-
they're-
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Galaxy Racer aren't active anymore, but they're
Yeah.
unfortunately they don't count it because they're not in top
Wouldn't
5.
have thought of them anyway, but
Now in the top 5, this is gonna throw people off because this one threw me off when I saw it was in the top 5. In 5th place is TSM.
what?
They're not an active Fortnite org.
Snacky
not-
is still on TSM, so TSM are an active Fortnite org.
Oh man.
So
Yeah, because they
all of
had
their
they had
earnings
the
count.
like, they had what's it
Mm,
Epic Run?
Commandment.
Yeah.
They had a bunch of people throughout the years.
Yeah.
A bunch of people. In 4th place, Team Falcons. Falcons
Okay.
I
are
thought-
in 4th.
Casey
When
knows
everyone-
that
Third,
shit.
so-
When everyone said
Yeah.
Falcons, I thought they'd be first. I generally was like,
So
surely
you,
they're
you
first.
didn't have Falcons, right?
No,
Harry?
no Falcons.
So Boop and Reese, 1 point
They're
for
on
each
third.
of you. Okay.
Oh,
1
nice.
point for each of you. In 3rd place, Team Liquid. Team
Mm.
Liquid are in 3rd place.
Who's on
Is
their
Persa
roster?
on them still
Yeah,
from
the
Brazil?
Brazil.
Yeah, they still got
Yeah.
some Brazilian players.
These
yeah.
are some
Oh,
Mickey
yeah,
orgs.
yeah.
These are some
Team Liquid, so Mickey, bro.
Yeah, like they're not even in Fortnite.
In
Give me my
second
strike
place,
supremacy.
respect Brazil, man. Come on, man.
Yeah.
In second place, Guild Esports.
All right, we got 1 point. We got 1 point.
So that means Boop is on 2 points. Harry's on 1, Reese is on
I'm on
1.
one.
So unless one of you guys can tie with this final answer of the team with the most earnings, Boop will be the winner for this week.
Come on.
I
Don't
can
tell me
reveal
Sentinels is still an org. Don't tell me that Sentinel.
the
Oh,
organization,
Sentinels.
the active organization with the most earnings in Fortnite history is the one and only FaZe Clan. FaZe up.
Oh,
My brothers,
Oh,
FaZe
World Cup,
up.
yeah.
FaZe
Efu
Clan.
made money.
Everyone made Mongrel,
Yeah.
fucking.
Yeah.
Just, who else did they have?
Who do they have
A bunch of
now?
people. Now
King.
FaZe
Mayhill.
have FaZe have Epicwell still. Epicwell still signed to FaZe.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
He is still signed to FaZe.
Doesn't really
so-
fit the brand, does he? Like,
Yeah, it's funny because when they did the whole FaZe like reshaping where they kicked everyone, like everybody was like, "Is Epicwell kicked?" And like he wasn't on any of the announcements to say he was kicked, but he also wasn't on any of the announcements to say he was still there. So
They
like,
forgot
Weird,
about it, man.
okay.
yeah, I think they just forgot my brother Epic, unfortunately. But yeah,
That was a good one. That was a
a good
it
one.
was hard. It was hard. Yeah, I knew
Yeah.
you guys would struggle. with that one.
after an entire podcast slandering orgs, then we have to make a question based on listing the best orgs. So
That's true.
Yeah,
That
I
is true.
genuinely, I thought there was going to be something like Sentinel still had like 1 player still on just like a year lifetime
Yeah,
contract
yeah.
or something. Like,
To be fair, the TSM one kind of felt like that because I forgot Snacky was on TSM.
Yeah.
still. That-
Yeah.
that did
we're same
all
with
done.
Liquid, right? Like,
Yeah, true.
Persa still there. Yeah.
Brazil is, I mean, it's not even a region, man. Come on.
Oh, okay.
All right, have a go at him.
Yeah,
Have
We're
a go at
making a
him.
lot. We're making a lot of
all the
enemies
French
today.
all the French fans have got 11. All the Brazilian fans have got boot. We're, you know, I'm
Who's on
nice
to
and
you?
friendly.
We're
You
safe
know,
for
I'm,
now.
I'm the
We're safe
nice
for now.
guy.
We didn't forget about your Thomas takes from last season, mate.
And
Don't
peanut
forget
butter
about
pollo.
you.
Yeah,
Okay.
that never
And-
happened. These never happened.
True, true.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. We're gonna try that again next week, and hopefully it'll be
That's
smooth
fun.
of a process. But that was good. Congratulations to Boot.
Thank you.
I won one, Boop won one, and
Respectable.
I
Harry has
don't
not
think
won
yours.
Yours doesn't count,
Competition
Harry.
that Reese doesn't count. Come on, man.
Congrats to the first winner, Boop.
Congratulations.
I mean, that just confirms the smartest person on the podcast.
Hey, and look,
obviously.
if you were playing along at home, let us know how you did. Don't cheat. Let us know honestly how you did. Put it in the comment
Comment
section
it,
below.
yeah.
Comment down below.
Can you,
how
can
much
you
better
remember
are.
5 Fortnite orgs?
I've already
Yeah,
forgotten
I
them
can't.
all.
I'm surprised you guys couldn't remember like 5 orgs. That seems
I
like-
forgot phase was a thing in Fortnite.
yeah, genuinely, it's like I'm just thinking of top players. I thought of GX Up. I was like, they don't have anyone on their roster, but any of the like FaZe, Team Liquid, none of those came to my
If it was
head,
like current, like Booga would have been Dignitas easy. Like I was like, they're gonna forget Booga. They're gonna forget Booga.
All right,
I think
cool.
the problem is when I look at players, I in no way associate them with an org at
same.
all. It's
True,
literally
yeah.
like there's a bunch of useless letters before their name,
And that's it.
that is literally it every time. I'm like,
It's weird because
the
you
only
used
time
to.
I remember it. Well, not even then, to be honest.
Yes,
but-
that was happening a lot, though.
like NRG back in the day, like you'd be like,
Yeah.
oh, like NRG, like they had like their sick roster, you know. With
They do, but
Unknown,
I'd still be like, oh, it's
Ronaldo.
just Benji.
fair
I'm
enough.
not like it's
fair
No,
enough.
to be
Benji.
fair, I did think about like back then. I was like NRG, thought of NRG.
Yeah,
you know,
like
it
I
was
thought of like
I
I
think-
thought of orgs back then. Not anymore, really though.
no.
The only time I
BL?
do it is when they switch. BL, that's it. The only time I do it is when they switch org, and I'm frustrated because I can never find them in replay mode when I put it by alphabetical order.
Yeah.
And I'm like, which org are you in? So I'm like scrolling, trying to find.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. All right, enough of the waffle now. We've done a bunch of ESL waffling, top 5 quiz waffling. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of today's episode. I'm excited. I'm so excited.
I'm looking
Semi-finals.
Is there a
Very
correct answer for this one too? Is there a winner?
There isn't a winner. There are lots of losers. I was very angry reading through these, but anyway, it's fine.
I
Look,
heard Reese's was horrible. Yeah.
Who had the worst? Who had the worst in your
I
opinion?
will let us know as we go through.
Okay.
So we're going to be doing a combined power ranking of EU and NA. We're going to start off with the EU region. Of course, we're going into semi-finals and grand finals. So I thought it'd be good, especially with how long the break has been, to have a ranking so that we can gauge and talk about some of the best teams in each region. I asked everybody for their top 10. I also asked some other people as well, people who have been on the show in the past who are respectable people in the Fortnite community. I asked them. So I asked the likes of, Kinch, Mini Miner, Jacobs, who's been on the show, right? People like that. Like I asked them for their rankings, and they also submitted, and I combined everybody's lists together. I allocated points for each position, and then we tallied up the points, and then based off of who had the most points, we ranked it out to have the finished rankings. I'm so excited. This should be good. This should be good. Should we start off? Or what do you have to
I think one thing, you should qualify how we've decided to rank.
True.
Because it's not just like, I think these are the best teams, they're going to win Grand.
Yes.
Because that is a very important
people are not going to listen to that.
Yes.
Bongo's not in the top 10.
No. That's a good point, because people are probably going to be upset about these lists. But
they will be.
Yeah, but especially some of the results I'm not a fan of. But we'll get to that. So the way we did these power rankings, which is very important, is that power rankings are different, right? Power rankings are different from predictions. They're different from just looking at, results and seeing how the results have played out. Because otherwise we could have just shown you guys a series point leaderboard and talked about the top 10. Or we could have showed you guys, we'll do a prediction stream for grand finals. But essentially, power rankings are like a blend between the two, right? It's like a mixture of what has actually happened results-wise this season, who's had the best results, / who do we predict to do well moving forward based off of those results. And typically with power rankings, and I think with these ones especially, they're usually weighted more in line with like actual results, right? It's based off of who's been doing good this season. So there's some teams who, if you were to predict for grand finals, you predict them top 5 every single time. But in our power rankings, they might be lower down because this season they ain't done shit, right? They've not placed in any events, right? And so
there's a few of them.
There are a few of them for sure. So it was about weighting the two and just, sort of making a power ranking based off of that. We can do updated power rankings after Grands, because I'm sure after Grands, right, a lot of them will change. Some of those guys will do much better in Grands, so they'll go up the power rankings, etc. So we'll keep these updated throughout the year. We'll eventually do like a global one as well, going into globals, which I think will be really fun to do, like a global power ranking. So we'll keep these power rankings updated like regularly to keep this as like a theme throughout the years. So with that information, send all your complaints to Coach Harry on Twitter.
Of course, I'm ready for them.
His ones were definitely the worst, surely.
He had some bad ones, but we'll talk about them. Let's get into it.
All right.
What was number 10 in the power rankings? Cringe and Volko on EU get number 10. Despite having more impressive results this season than some of the teams ahead of them, Cringe and Volko just scraped their way into the top 10. What do we make of Cringe and Volko at number 10?
I did not even think about them.
I didn't put them in my top 10.
I don't know whose top 10 this is. This is not my top 10.
This is not my top 10.
I had them at 6th. So I put them at 6th because based on the 2 FNCS qualifiers. Now, the one thing I want to put my analysis has been off of 4 Cash Cups, dual Cash Cups, and the 2 FNCS qualifiers. Everything else, I don't really care about that much. Solos, squads, performance evals, I'm not really that fussed about it. So I put all my teams out into a spreadsheet with all their placements, so I could just look at them and be like, okay, where are these guys kind of placed? Like, what's their stuff been? When it comes to Cringe and Volko, for the 2 FNCS qualifiers, we've had a 24th and a 2nd, which is incredibly good. Of course, when it comes to FNCS qualifiers, they're a bit mickey because the quality of the lobbies is not fantastic overall, but that's still really consistent placement. Then when it comes to the solo Cash Cups, a 2nd and a 4th in there as well. Or sorry, 1/4 in there as well. Now, some of the other ones have been a bit awful, like a couple top 4Ks, a couple top like 2Ks and things like that as well. But I think overall they've had enough like almost wins of high-level tournaments that they definitely deserve something in the top 10, especially when you start looking at some of the big boys have performed this season.
Yeah, I also had them at 6th as well in my ranking, so I think the same as you. Yeah, Cringe and Volko have been really good. I'm really excited about them. I think one thing that I also factored into my rankings, which we'll probably get to and discuss more as we go on, was just like actual like where these people are landing and the significance of that, right? So for me, Cringe and Volko, obviously landing at Lavish Lair, which isn't necessarily one of the best POIs this season when you look at how many good POIs and good spots there are, but typically they're uncontested there. Even when they are contested there, Cringe has like bossed it, when contested at Lavish Lair in previous seasons. Volko has been unfortunate to be conned at in the past couple of seasons at Pleasant, right? Yeah, they were at Pleasant when they were landing Pleasant with Vortexes. He was conned there a lot, and I think that was quite unfortunate for how those guys ended up doing a lot of the time. But I think both of these guys have experience being conned. I don't think they even will be conned come grand finals. I think they'll get unconned. And these 2 uncon Lavish, based off of what we've seen from them this season, I think they should be in like a top 10 ranking. They've had really good results. and they look really good. Like when I watch them, like they're really fun to watch as well. So I'm a big fan of Cringe and Volko.
100%. And one of the things as well is I think Cringe, to be fair, I think Volko is a huge upgrade for Cringe, right? I think Volko is a player who, if you speak to a lot of players, they rate very highly. He's a very smart player and can improve teammates a lot, with quite a structured game plan, right? And you watch the way they play, and it's really clean to watch. It is really effective, and they play a lot of the time towards height. You'll see them get a lot of wins in most open rounds, and they also get it in later rounds as well. And a player like Cringe, who has been kind of on an up and up this entire year, mixed with Volko, someone who does have experience, right? I think they have a recipe for success this season for sure.
For sure.
It's one of those teams where you don't know why they're good, but they do end up always doing good because it's not like a star player, right? Like it's Cringe, I think, is going to his first FNCS Grand Finals if they qualify this season, right? First when he conned Queasy, last season he did kind of okay, and the only reason they're together now is because Noms is going on holiday now, so Cringe and Noms weren't going to play anyways. So with a experienced player like Volko, who at some points in his career, at least when he played with Vortexes, I put him into even potentially being a top 3 FNCS team at one point. Like there's potential there. Honestly, I forgot about them. Wait, what'd you say?
I said, all right, Mini Minor.
I mean, there was a point.
Player.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there was a point where it was possible, but honestly, I honestly forgot about them just because they're just there, But yeah, I see why they're in top 10.
All right, fair enough. Let's take a look at number 9, who was the 9th place team on the power rankings. Vidil and Reason. Okay. Came 4th in qualifier 2. Vidil has streamed 92 hours of Fortnite and 120 hours of Valorant. To be fair to him, we have had a long break, so he's got to get them Valorant hours in. Did you guys have Vidil and Reason on your lists?
Yeah.
Nope.
I had them in 6th on my list. So
I did not have them in.
This is a team that every single time I do predictions, all the Germans spam my chat like, was bist Reason und Vidil? And then I'm like, yeah, but like they're kind of like content created nowadays because they just play Valorant, and the Reason doesn't play the game that much at like a scrim level, but he plays it like every single day playing ranked and everything, right? So I'm like, okay, they're not that good. But then every single tournament, there's always a point in every single FNCS where like looking at the leaderboard, you're like, wait a second, Reason Vidil are 3rd. Oh, wait a second, they're 2nd, they're 4th. They could win this FNCS. And then they had the unfortunate situation of crashing I think 2 seasons ago. So they're always in that top 10 every single grand finals, even though they shouldn't be. And this time I decided to give them credit and put them into 6th place on my list.
So I think for me, 6th place would be way too high for them. I had them in my list. I had them at 10th place, just from the perspective of like, they're an example, and there's a couple more teams like this. They're an example of a team that probably doesn't have like the results this season to be in the top 10. Maybe you'd argue that like that qualifier 2 performance was enough, right? But generally, like their results haven't been amazing. But like you alluded to, Boop, it's Reason and Vidil. Like they're always going to be like good. They're landing at Snooty, which is one of the best spots this season. More often than not, they're con there. But like even when they're con, they don't do that bad there. I think in the recent Cash Cup, they were conned, I can't remember who by, but they were conned by like 2 teams, I think. And they did like pretty all right in some of those games when like fighting off spawn. So I think more or less like Reason Vidil will be good. They're always going to be a team in and around that top 10 in the grand finals. And I think just off of that alone, it's enough to push them higher up in a season where maybe they haven't lit the world on fire. And that's sort of why I had them just making my top 10 at 10th.
They're a team that I just actually literally forgot about. It's like they, like I said, they've pretty much been in 1 Cash Cup and they've been in 1 FNCS. Like I said, they placed 4th in the qualifier 2, and they are a team that, if you look historically through their qualifiers, their Cash Cups, it's like they're not necessarily a team who's going to come top 3 every Cash Cup, top 3 every qualifier, and do super good. But as you mentioned, come grand finals, they'll be amazing. So that alone, they do absolutely warrant a place on the list.
Yeah, they're never the favorite coming into an FNCS ever because of, as you said, like it feels like until it gets to heats and grand finals, they don't really take it fully seriously. Like they do enough to qualify to upper bracket, and then they're like, okay, then we're gonna turn it on, which I think is the case for a lot of big teams, right? Obviously the one that happened last season with Queasy and Thomas that obviously happened, but it's a lot of big teams who will take the qualifiers a lot more lightly than maybe some of the tier 2 teams or tier 3 teams, and it will mean that we have less expectation for them going into grand finals. But as you said, Vidil and Reason, it always feels like they're in contention for top 5 or at least like top 10 minimum.
I'd love to see some like stats done on this, or even like one of the many content creators on this call right now to do some content on like their ability, and a couple other teams have this as well, to just like be infallible when just fucked on Surge and like not stacked. And there's so many games I'll watch of them where it's like they're just barely above the Surge line, their mats don't even look that great, but they will just get into endgame with something. Like they are not leaving this lobby without getting to endgame.
They maximize the shit games.
They maximize the fuck out of the shit games.
I call it the clicks effect. It's like they don't have like the fundamentals of like a comp player that's practiced a lot, but they're so good aim-wise and mechanical-wise that they get out of any shit situation, right? It reminds me of old Clicks. It used to be that all the way. Like very good mechanically, but always put himself in the worst spot.
I'll give you a better example. A more relevant one is really just the Miro and Cooper. Like, that's the way to think about it. If you walk through the global championships or something like that, you're like, oh, these guys are dead. No, they're still back. And that's the same thing with them every time. And that is the advantage of having, I was about to be really rude and say having no brain cells. That's not what I meant. But I was going to say that's the advantage of being like an incredibly mechanical, good fighting duo, that you have both like 2-star player teams or players essentially, is that you can kind of get your way out of those crappy situations. Sure, you might not be in the best situations super frequently, but because you have so much talent, wherever you're in, you're going to be able to be fine enough, you know?
Yeah, like when I watched Vidil a lot this year, especially this season, like he like takes like a lot more 50-50s in fights. And I feel like that just is like the confidence that's come with like the experience of like, I am just going to hit my shots and they're probably not. And so I win more often than not. Like these guys are...
I just want to add a very important note on that. You mentioned about content creators talking about why these guys are so good. Now, I have done a lot of videos talking about Reason and Vidil over the last few years. And what's always been interesting, I remember going back to chapter 2, talking about Vidil specifically, was like, the reason he's so good is because he wins a lot of 50-50s and he's fast, you know?
He takes so many.
I remember there's one video I did in particular, I can't remember which it was. Half of the video is me being like, by the way, don't do this. Just don't do this. Like, you're like, it wins. He wins because he's so good in these situations, but you're not, so don't do this.
Yeah. Nah. Reason Vidil for me. Again, if I was to predict them, I had them at 10th. If I was to predict them, like for grand finals, I'd probably put them higher just because they're just a lock more often than not. Let's take a look at who was 8th. Who was the number 8 team on the Fantasia Power Rankings this season? Cammy and Seti. Interesting. Okay. I'll start off and say this.
Yeah.
Wait. Okay, the highest position they were ranked was 5th, and they were even left off of one list. Okay. So, the thing with Cammy and Seti is, if you were to look at results this season, there is nothing to write home about. I think in qualifier 2, they came like 19th or something like that.
Yeah.
And outside of that, like some of the cash cups, I think maybe were all right towards the start of the season. But like for the most part, even those weren't good.
So their cash cups were 2,859th.
Brilliant.
Not a good start. Getting outplaced by Resub and Destiny Jesus, not a good start.
Not
Second one, 8th. So you are correct. And the second one did good. But then it's like 7,800, 105th. So like for a team like Cammy and Seti to come top 8K, like that is something, I don't know what's gone on like specifically with that, but like something's hellishly wrong if you're placing in that kind of spot, you know?
So this is an example of a team that we referenced before where it's like, based on this season, there is nothing to put them in top 10. If we're being honest, for like a power ranking where you're like basing it heavily off of like results, there's nothing to put them in top 10. But I think they make the top 10 for most people because it's Cammy and Seti. Like,
yes,
it's Cammy and Seti. They're landing at a really good spot this season, one of the best spots in the game. Who knows if they'll be contested or not? We know they've had some problems with that during the qualifiers, but like, it's Cammy and Seti.
I think you were also a bit generous there by saying no one would put them in the top 10, because I think if you just looked at placements this season, no one would put them in the top 25. Like,
No, 100.
quite frankly, theirs is by far the worst. Just comparing it to everyone else out here, is like by far the worst out of any of the teams we're talking about right now, which is shocking to say. But again, come grand finals,
It's Cammy and Seti, you know.
It's Cammy and Seti, man. Yeah.
Not only will they have something cooked up for strats, but like as you said, 11, they're landing at one of, if not, like I'd say top 3 landing spots this season, right? It is they are set up for success. We see how they do it. Sometimes not even the best spots or even close to the best spots, and you're landing at a spot which you have Slurp Cacti every single game. You have a team on NA who you're probably exchanging strats with, both getting coached by Bloodex. You're going to be set up for a really good grand finals, but as you said, this season has been so underwhelming for them. It's another one of those top teams who hasn't really shown anything. And I wonder if that's just they don't want to show anything. They want to hide everything and just do the bare minimum to qualify, or they are actually struggling. It's hard to say, obviously, but for sure, like when it comes to grand finals, you can never, ever count Cammy and Seti out.
So I had them in my top 10. I had them at 9th.
I had the same.
On the topic of like whether they show anything, whether they have anything or not. So I've had the privilege to be able to watch Cammy play scrims a bunch this season through like screen sharing and Discord and stuff. They got shit. And they'll be good. And so that's why for me, I felt more comfortable being able to be like, yeah, like they're going to be a team that is in the top 10 in that regard.
Notice how you only said one name in that list there. The privilege of watching Cammy play scrims. Where's Seti in that conversation?
You know, Seti's doing this. Seti's on holiday. Seti was on holiday. I think
He got a Rolex. He just bought a Rolex.
He was on holiday with his girlfriend. I think they were in Greece or something, somewhere lovely, you know, enjoying life.
Those Rolexes
Cammy's
don't buy
in the
themselves.
trenches.
Cammy's playing scrims with Yomzo and NA, you know, like it's fucking, it's hard. But yeah, you do have a good point on that.
Yeah, so I put them a little bit high. I put them in 5th, and the only reason why I put them 5th is obviously because of history, and obviously we're waiting recent results as well. But they are the best, worst Fortnite team, Cammy and Seti, when it comes to the format that Fortnite offers 90% of a season, right? Duo cash cups require you to drop 30, 40 bombs every single tournament, and then they require you to get high eliminations in order to catch up to people, because that's what fills out the rest of placement. They're not the type of team to get, you know, the 30 bomb in the last game to qualify like most teams, right? They're not the type of teams that drop 15 kill wins to keep themselves into high elo, or that they need a last 10 kill win to win the last game to qualify as well. They don't do that. They are good set lobby players, and when it comes to set lobbies, I feel like you're always going to be in contention to be in the top 5. And I think it's insane that someone didn't put them in the top 10, because this has been a thing every single season. There's not been a season, as far as I feel like, I don't have the stats to back it up, but from general consensus where I'm like, okay, Cammy and Seti are looking like they're winning this FNCS, because they're never doing well in dual cash cups, in my opinion.
Yeah, so to be fair to the, but I know who didn't put them in the top 10.
Harry.
In case they don't, it wasn't Harry. In case they're not someone here. It was one of the people that voted. That's not here.
Hinch, definitely.
To be fair to that person, they specifically
Hinch.
were fair in that, like, all the people who just didn't have results this season weren't in their top 10. Like, so they weighted very
Stats
heavily
guy,
towards
Valid.
maybe, I don't know. I'm not saying anything. What I will say as well, in terms of like how I did things, again, just I always like have like a personal like power ranking in my head, and so like, even though I'm sure not many people did this, I also accounted for like what would my power ranking have been at the end of last season. And because they did so, like there's a decay, you know, it's like, you know, they didn't just spawn in. Like if I was in a power ranking from before, like from after last Grands, they would have been very high up, right? Because they had a really good performance. So it's like, they obviously go down because they've not had the results. But as Boop said, it's like they're never really like the format of comp Fortnite for the most part doesn't suit them to have good results with their playstyle, who they are as players. I know they're going to do well in the most important events when needed. And so for me, they still stayed in that top 10. But I understand why people would have had them lower and maybe even out completely as well for a power ranking. Yeah, Cammy and Seti in 8th. Who's number 7? Let's look at number 7. Let's see. Number 7 in our power rankings goes to Haris and iDrop. Haris led the qualifiers in damage dealt. They were ranked as high as 2nd in somebody's list, but were left off of some other lists. So a lot of variance there. Some people having them
Harry
second.
put them second.
I did put them second. I did put them second.
Jesus, that's high, bro.
Well, you like Haris? No way.
No way. I know, it's crazy. No, I think I don't think there's a player right now from the qualifiers who is more on form than Haris. I think he has genuinely performed as the best player on EU this season. And for me, I was thinking about it as a duo. Obviously, I don't like. It's hard for me to say that they are going to be like second in grand finals, but off the recent form and how well Haris and iDrop have been performing together, and how insane their pop-offs have been, I just think they're a team who can easily perform this grand finals and this season whole. I'm more wondered who left them off.
I left them off.
You left them
I honestly,
off?
I forgot about them again.
What is this? What is this Mickey list?
When I was reading through some of this, like, I wanted to like message people to be like, there's one on NA that's like egregious that got left off, and I was like gonna message the person I left them off to be like, hey, just to remind you, this
I'm
team
looking at my
plays
NA list
on
right
NA.
now. I don't
Looking through mine, who did I forget? No.
Someone
Someone definitely forgot Batman Boog and Rapid. I feel like that's the type of team to be
It's
forgotten.
a Pierbot and Poyo, definitely. Someone forgot Pierbot
Yeah,
and
so,
Poyo.
some people definitely forgot people, and I wanted to like bump people to like be like, hey, but I didn't want to have influence because maybe they did leave them off,
Valid.
you know. So I just
Valid.
left it as like double check
Yeah.
your list and send it to me, you know. So, yeah, Haris and iDrop. I mean, where did I have them on mine? I actually can't remember. I had them on mine. I had them at 8th.
Fifth.
I had them at 8th, so I had them like sort
So
of.
a huge variance, even just
Yeah.
between this is left off 2nd, 8th, and 5th. Like it is.
Yeah. So for me, I agree with all the Haris stuff. Like we were bigging up Haris like a couple weeks ago on the pod. Like he's been amazing. In quals, I remember seeing them a bunch when I was on the broadcast in like really good spots. Like they're playing for height a bunch, and they look really good. iDrop seems really confident playing with Haris. Like I've seen him like bigging him up a lot on socials and stuff. So they look really good. The results have been good. They're just people who I think have had better results and look better and are more likely based on history to do better. So that's
Agreed.
why they're at 8 for me.
I think even just from like a strict placement point of view, you know, you're saying, Harry, that they're looking right up there.
Yeah.
Even just strictly results, there are like at least 3 or 4 teams who've just placed in like just easily measurably better than them as well. So but obviously great team, but I put them in 5th.
I mean, I'm looking at my list and I'm looking at, okay, who would I replace them with on my list? It's kind of hard. I can't really pick a team on my list that I'd actually replace them with, right? Like I could
Trying
see
to
like
justify it. I see
the 7th to the 10th, and I say, okay, maybe they could swap around with one of those guys, but I'm standing on business. They're out of my top 10. Done.
Yeah. I mean,
I
I
respect
just
that.
Intentional.
Yeah, I think there's not enough respect on iDrop's name. Personally, I also think this is a player who, even when we go to Chapter 5, Season 1, was in contention for top 5. I think they obviously I think they missed a game day 1 or it was day 2 when a couple of teams missed a game. They only play 11 games in that grand finals, and they still finished near top 10. And there was easily a possibility where they could easily have slipped into the top 10, if not further into the top 5. And I think iDrop has always been a player who I've looked at as a very, very smart player, and he has a really clear understanding of how he wants to play. And put him with someone who, like Haris, who is a crazy fighter. And if, you know, we could talk about it for hours and hours on them. But
You could, you
yeah,
mean. No.
yeah,
You
I
could,
could.
yeah,
I could talk about Haris for hours on them. But I just, for me, with how they performed this season and thinking about the recency bias, and I know I'm going more of like the pop-off potential and like how high I think they could go. I think for me, I'm fine with 2nd place for me putting them there.
Yeah.
Valid.
Fair enough. All right, let's take a look at number 6. Who was 6th in the Fantasia rankings? It was Queasy and Thomas HD. Make the top 10 despite a pretty quiet season. Their most notable placement being 21st in Qualifier 2. Were voted as high as 3rd on one list. So people had them high.
I would like to open this out by saying I made a list yesterday, and what I did, just to clarify how I made the list, was I actually went on Gamepedia, filtered by this season's actual PR, and then I started going through it and altering them. Queasy and Thomas HD were so far down the PR list that I actually didn't scroll that far, and I forgot that they existed. So I didn't put them in my original list.
My.
And then
Yeah.
it was funny, I was lying in bed and I was about to go to sleep, and for some reason I was
You're
like,
thinking
I
about
forgot
them.
Queasy and Thomas HD, bro. It's like, oh fuck. So I woke up this morning and changed my list around. So
Yeah.
I
When
put
you
them in
sent me
ninth,
your
though.
original
Yeah.
list and you didn't have them, Reese, I didn't say, but I was happy because I was like, "Ooh, Reese, okay, that's interesting. Now we can
Yeah,
have a
hot take.
conversation about that." Yeah,
I
that's
mean-
gonna be.
So here's the thing for them, right? Their performances, specifically just from placement wise, right? If you look at the numbers straight away, you might be a little shocked, right? Because they have qualifier 1, 85th. So you're like, man, they missed qual. You look at the second qualifier where they placed 21st, as mentioned there. So their first set lobby of the season, not a great performance from them. Then you look at the other cash cups they've had. They've missed qual 3 times and they've come 10th in another one. So to me, I'll be totally honest, I rate a position, say like in a cash cup, if they've placed 67th, right? If they placed 67th in the opens, I rate that higher than someone placing like 40th in the finals, because they have just missed qual so many times. So it's hard to actually say how good they would be in a more competitive set lobby. I can easily sit here and say that Queasy and Thomas have not qualled a lot of stuff just this season. I don't think that necessarily actually shows how good they are when it comes to playing like a set lobby that we care about, more importantly. So, you know, for them, when I looked at all of the results, I still put them in 9th, so I still put them like relatively low. But I think their results are probably worse than you would or worse than they actually are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like worse than the reality of like where they're at as a team this season, for sure.
100%.
Yes.
For me, they were in that same sort of category as like a Kami Say, where like the results aren't what you'd want from a team in the top 10 of a power ranking, but it's Queasy and Thomas, so they're obviously really good. Like if I'm predicting them in the grand finals, I'm predicting them to top 10 easily every day of the week. They missed my top 10 though on the power ranking.
Oh,
if my
you're a
power ranking-
hater. You're a hater.
I'm not a hater.
He's a hater. He's an absolute
I'm
hater.
not a
We have
hater.
a new Queasy hater in the call.
He was in my list. He was 7th in my list. He was there. I appointed him.
You were just scared. Like you
Yeah.
were, bro was fucking typing as this trembling. Like I better put Queasy high.
No, I'll quickly
For me-
say that the reason why was because they had, for Queasy and Thomas, they never really have good cash cups and qualifiers, it feels like. But this season, this is better than what it usually is. And for me, that's like, okay, so to be fair, like if they're doing their starting point is better than what it usually is, that means the end point in my head should be a lot better. I can't put them as high as some other teams because obviously there's some teams who had way better placements. But I just felt that they had shown enough for me this season that with obviously the 3-week break, and we have to keep that as a context, right? There's been a 3-week break between the last qualifier, the last tournament, and now, right? Teams are going to change completely how they play, and you get into this situation now, and you have a team like Queasy and Thomas who are already placing well enough in comparison to last season, and give them weeks to practice and all that sort of stuff. And I think they're probably going to have a really, really good season again.
Yeah. So the reason why they were just missed for me, like if it was like a top 11, they would have been the 11th team. They were in my list originally, and then I bumped them out. It's for me, it's literally like the exact same situation as Kami and Say. The problem I'd say for them that they had, which is why they missed, is just they have like slightly less decay in that like Kami and Say obviously came 3rd last season, so they were starting from like a higher point than where Thomas and Queasy were for me. But yeah, for most of the things I'd say about them would be the same in terms of just like, yeah, they're not worried. I'm not actually really worried about these guys. I think they're much more chilled as well. From like, speaking to Queasy, they seem much more chilled about like how things are going to be this season. It's not really stress. Yeah,
they don't have a grief landing spot getting contested by 3 teams at
yeah,
once.
like it's not as it's not as
There's
bad.
just a lack of pressure for them. That's it. Like
Yeah.
they don't care. Priorities for Thomas or for ESL, for Queasy, no longer ESL, but hasn't really cared that much. Has been on holiday, But I was actually the one that put them 3rd on my list, just because
That's high, man.
Yeah, I
That's
honestly,
That's
Reese's-
too high.
Yeah, that is pretty high. And it's a little bit less weighted towards recent results and just the fact that come gun to your head, put them into Nefertiti's grand finals to get top 3. I would happily take them most of the time. I mean, I think last season, we're talking about last season. I mean, being triple contested and still placing in the top 10, I'd say is commendable, and then being a contender to win the season before that is insane as well. Like, you're not going to lose that, and I would happily put them in the top 5 this FNCS as well, even with the lack of practice and lack of results.
I'll be honest, man. I'm looking at your list, Boop. This ain't a power ranking, man. This is a prediction list, bro. This ain't a power ranking, bro. This is a prediction list, bro. Had Kami and Queasy in the top 5 as a on a power
no-go.
ranking list this season. That's not a power ranking list, bro.
That's crazy.
You might have the worst list.
You don't know behind the scene.
Unironically.
Hey, you're talking to the winner of the top 5 game. Put some respect on my name.
Yeah, joint winner. You know, talk to the joint winner.
All right, Harry. All right.
Like, when
Harry.
you win a top 5 game, then come talking. I don't want to hear 11.
All right, bro. All right, fair enough. Let's look at the next position. Who's next on the power ranking list? Number 5, Trulex and Chicho were ranked as high as 3rd on one list and as low as 9th on another, but were consistently middle of the pack in most lists. So 5th looks like a fair reflection for them. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think for me, Trulex and Chicho, for this season, it's weird because I feel like they're going under the radar as a team who's really like performing well. But then you look at their placements, especially during these FNCS qualifier weeks, they are performing well. Obviously, they came 2nd in the series points leaderboard, which you take with a pinch of salt, but you know, it does mean something. And you know, when it comes to Trulex and Chicho, there's one thing you can always expect. It's a lot of surge bases, but not only just the surge bases, but it's a clear structured way of they're going to play. You know they're going to be above surge most games. They're not going to be a team like Reason and Vidil who are going to be completely scuffed and having to recover the game. Their games are going to look very consistent throughout. You could pick a game from 1 to 12 in the grand finals and they'll look very similar, right? And from what it looks like this season, them having a landing spot which looks like Unlock, which none of us would really say is like the best landing spot, you know, landing just to the south of Lavish Lair. It does feel like they cared more about being uncontested this season than having what happened during the semi-finals last season, where obviously Apple 2K contested them, and then it meant they got contested in grand finals. This season's a huge one for, and then they end up
getting banned.
No, his teammate got banned. He didn't get banned. Teammate. Yeah.
You know,
the one who I didn't say his name of got banned. But yeah, so I think Trulex and Chicho definitely, obviously there's pressure on them for this season. They haven't qualified to globals. But if I was them, I wouldn't be worried. If you're looking at a lot of the teams who have already qualified, a lot of them are like taking the season a little bit more chilled, and they are definitely one of the better teams at the moment who need to still qualify for global. So I feel like we can, what you always expect, how Trulex and Chicho is a very consistent, solid season for them.
Yeah, what I love is actually the change of drop spot. Like, I feel like there's a lot of teams who just full stick to one drop spot season after season, even if it like clearly wasn't working for them. And for me to show that they switched up, even though there's a new season and there's new stuff there and yada yada yada, to me that shows that like they are fully understanding that their last season off spawn basically completely ruined their full season. And when you look at like their placements this season, playing through it at qualifiers, awesome. And then again, when you start looking at through like just missing out on cash cups or cash cup finals, is the exact same thing we talk about where like Queasy and Thomas, where they're well, not necessarily off spawn, but they're clearly losing a couple games off spawn if you look through like their match history. So they're still not so good off spawn, but they're hardcore focusing on that off spawn drop spot for finals and whatnot. So that was a bunch of waffle just to say they're looking better this season. I'm happy.
I don't really have much to add. Any thoughts, Boop? I agree with it. Everyone's really.
I mean, they're just always going to be that middle of the pack, consistent team. I put them a little bit low. I think 3rd is very, very, very.
Did one of you put them 3rd?
I saw in the thing it said someone put them 3rd as high as 3rd.
I'm saying like it's one of us. Was it one of us here? I can't remember off the top of my head.
I put them 5th. I put them Bandsmack 5th.
Let me try to find who put them 3rd.
Well, what's your power ranking?
Mine, I put them. Let me check mine. I put them 7th.
I have them 7th as well.
Middle of the pack. Yeah. I can't remember putting them 3rd, but maybe I'll check it after and you guys know. Either way,
a little bit high. Yeah.
I think 3rd is a bit too high for them, but they're more or less.
Their goal this season isn't to win FNCS. You know that you can always say that. Like their goal is let's make globals, and we can place 11th or 12th as long as we're uncontested. We're good enough to be consistent. We play med kits. First final moving to get top 5 guaranteed places. That's the type of place that they have. They don't have a winning mentality, so they can't be anywhere in the top 5 in my opinion.
I was about to say, they're the only team who can make the playing not to lose work. Like, they literally just playing not to die. Like, they're not, like, making the huge aggro play for high every game in the grand finals, but you will see them somewhere between 10th and 5th in every single game.
For sure.
And we won't see them on the broadcast because they'll be dying in like 5th, and they'll just be on like that top 10 in the leaderboard the whole
just be
time and
teammates
have
popping to
no
make it.
highlights.
Shrek will be
Literally
600
no
meters in storm.
No highlights. It's
I
crazy.
actually love that. That is so true. Like they have like fucking Mickles trying to make a package. He's like struggling. Like, what do we fucking get for this? These guys
Just
are
get a
fucking
bunch of
kidding.
medkit
Just-
plays and some
yeah.
hype music.
Show him getting surge tags on the tower and playing a medkit. That'd be crazy.
It's cooked. It's
Yeah.
actually cooked. All right, let's take a look at number. Is this the top 5? No, we're going into the top 5. Or were they 5th?
4.
They
Oh,
were
4th.
fifth.
Okay.
They were- yeah.
4th place.
Vico and Flixie.
Vico and Flixie. The only duo where both players were in the top 5 in damage dealt and eliminations during the EU qualifiers. Firepower.
Yeah, they're pretty good. They are.
Yeah.
They're
Good
yeah,
analysis
they're all
there,
right.
yeah.
They're all right. You know, pretty mid. But no, they're obviously, you know, they are the most aggressive team we have on EU. They're the team who, well, their coach said them himself at the start of the season. Peter Bonpo version 2. That's why you want to create. You want to try and create the similar thing. Obviously, it's gonna be hard to create that.
Sometimes the sequel's not as good as the original.
No,
you know?
exactly. This is the true sequel, but you know, there's firepower, as you said, Levin. It's a team who are going to have pop-off moments. They had an insane duo Cash Cup run where they got what was it? Poop? It was it a win, 2 seconds,
So
2
they
thirds?
got win, second, third, and then they were gonna get third in the last game to complete it, and then they died 27th or something.
Yeah, so it's like they have that consistency. Obviously, duo Cash Cup lobby is a much lower level. My worry for them is still Reckless. It's
Yep.
still the same problem that, you know, Flixie's had the past 2 seasons at Reckless. It's a great spot. And to be fair, it suits them as a team more. You have to be aggressive from Reckless. You have to move somewhere else, because if you sit in Reckless, you're getting no surge. So it can work for them, especially if, you know, a lesser team's landing at the forecast split forecast split underneath them. So that can work for them. And as we talked about, Pink and Vico's biggest problem was when they had to fight for the forecast, or when they had to fight a team, they wouldn't wipe them quickly. The fights would mainly grief them, make their games worse. And with Vico and Flixie, this is something which we can see that is going to benefit them a lot now. With this firepower, as you said, it's like they're going to be able to wipe teams when they're scuffed. They're going to be able to fight for forecasts even from Reckless. They're going to be able to do these things, which are going to give them the better games.
Well, I agree with that. But I also want to say, like, I hope that also stays the case come Grands, because
Yes.
if you remember, the discourse around Pink and Vico was that they'd be able to do the same thing. Like, they were coined as like one of the best fighting duos in any lobby that they were in. And come grand finals, like, they weren't wiping people. And I think the default thing people could do is say, okay, well, maybe that's just because of Pink. But it's like, it's not only on Pink, right? Like, you go back and you watch all those fights, and like, Vico isn't wiping people how he typically is when it's not grand finals. So like, I hope now the fact that they've had more confidence in just fighting more, because he's doing it more, German comms, whatever, all these things, like just the momentum they've had, I hope that's enough to make it so that Vico can stay at that same level come grand finals. But that is like a very interesting question for them. And I agree with all the things you said there about Reckless as well, Harry. I actually did an interview with both of them for the broadcast that I think people are going to see, you know, semifinals and in grand finals. And like, I asked them about like staying at Reckless. Like, why did you stay at Reckless even though it's like whack? And
Use those words as well. This shit's whack. Why are you there?
this shit's whack. I think they might cut that bit from the video.
Yeah.
But like, they both seemed very much like, yeah, and that's how it was. But you know, we feel a bit better about it this season. So you know, there wasn't much there to make me be like, okay, I don't think this is whack anymore. But they at least both seem quite optimistic about.
It's even worse than I thought.
Let's see.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's pretty much Vico Unchained this season. I feel like he's been, you know, he has the confidence back with the new duo. It's been working, and they're one of the teams I think that they probably, if we let's say we go into a grand finals, they probably have like a shit day one, and then all of a sudden we have that 500-point comeback in day two. I feel like that's going to be manifest at some point with the way that they play, because they're just going to get eliminations, and the format's going to work out so well for them regardless in anything.
Yeah. I think like, I don't know. Everyone always says format for day 2 is if it makes a difference, because it's as if it's like high elim points
Mentally
rather
for
than
them.
It's a mental
but
thing.
still just like placement is also the same
Yeah.
multiplier. But I think I basically mirror what everyone else has said. They've had kind of the opposite from a lot of the teams like Kemi and City we've mentioned so far, where they've had amazing placements to date, but I'm more concerned about how they play in grands. Completely the opposite from a lot of the other big teams right now. I also put them 4th, so you know.
So I was gonna say then, they got fourth on this, do we think that I put them fourth on mine? Do we like fourth for them? Would you say too high, too low, just about right? What does everyone feel about that?
I
For
put them.
power
I put
ranking,
them
that's right.
sixth.
You put
I
them
put them-
sixth.
I put them
Yeah.
fourth as well.
Okay, so yeah.
So
I think-
one
I think-
person's wrong here, basically.
I mean, 3 people are wrong here.
Where you put him,
Yeah.
Levin? Where
I
you
put him fourth.
Levin?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Fourth with
3
fourth.
fourths.
Three
Look at
fourths,
that.
Yeah, look at that. Mm.
I think for a power ranking, fourth is like a really good spot for them because they've had a lot of really good results. But yeah, like there's still an error of caution there, just based off of like, you know, history, situation, blah blah blah. Cool. Let's take a look at the top 3. We start to get into the top 3. Who was third? Chap and
Ooh.
Teeny. Teeny, the only controller player in the top 10. His duo Chap had the 3rd most damage dealt during the EU qualifiers. Teeny and
That's
Chap in 3rd. How
high.
do you feel about that?
That
What do
is
you mean that's high?
I mean,
High.
like, okay, first of all, if this was pre-Nitro Fist nerfs, I'd be like, yep, perfect. Or pre-Nitro Splashes nerf, I'd be like, yep. But ever since those things got taken out, I feel like there's been a steady decline in the, maybe not the play, I mean, the placements as well. I feel like I haven't seen them anywhere near competitive enough to be a considerate for a top 3 of this FNCS.
Oh, definitely. I mean, since the nerf, they still placed 6th in a Cash Cup, which is like not the dominance they always have. But like, I think to take the fact that they came 2nd last season and then have done so good this season as well already, to then just be like, this is a high placement for them. Like that's lower than they placed in Grands
I
last
was
season.
gonna
Is
say-
just
I think you're bugging
crazy
here.
to say.
I think you're
I
bugging
put them
here.
2nd.
Yeah, where did-
I put them
I-
2nd.
I put them
I think
third.
third's too low.
I put them. I put them 2nd as well. Maybe if I was changing, I put them 3rd, but I put them 2nd. I think you're bugging it, Boop. Yeah, they came off of a season when they came 2nd, so they're already really high. Like they're starting from a really high point for me mentally. You're right in that, like since the whole like Nitro shit, like getting nerfed and all that shit, like since all of that stuff getting nerfed, they definitely don't hold the same power level. But their results have still been good enough to where, like, I think on a power ranking, you'd put them at least in like the top 3.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
It's also a seasonal power ranking, not
Right.
this week's power ranking. You know?
Yeah,
right,
I mean-
right.
yeah, of course. Of course, the bow nerf hurt them a lot, but they're still one of the best teams on our region. They're still performing insanely well in Cash Cups, and they still will probably fight for forecast every single game, grief for forecast every single game, and with other teams who need to qualify for globals, they're going to have that aura around them, which obviously teams aren't going to be willing to fight them for it. And yeah, as you said, all those points you made were correct, Levin and Maurice. It's like they came 2nd last season. They had a good start to the season, obviously with an overpowered item. Things got nerfed. They're still performing well. Like maybe 3rd for me was maybe too low. I would probably bump them to 2nd. I think it's just they are one of our best teams.
So where did you have them, Boop?
I had them in 7th. And again, maybe you're
low,
right. This is
man.
maybe more of a prediction for grand finals than a power ranking, but I'm noticing a decline. That's it. I'm
They got washed.
pre-firing. No. Top 7 is
Yeah,
is
yeah,
valid.
that's why
It's
you
very
have to-
good compared to the more experienced teams above them. I just think there's a combination of everything coming together with the bow nerfs and the nerfs. I mean, everything's been nerfed for them this season. The fists, the bows, and the splashes, right? And they're not going to be washed because they did well last season before that. But I feel like like last season's was a little bit different because it was a little bit more momentum based. They were coming in fresh faces, and it worked out for them. I think things are settled down a little bit more now, and in the nitty gritty of it, I think that the meta doesn't suit them as much as it did at the start of the season to put them that high for 3rd.
I've watched yesterday Teeny play solo Cash Cup. I was just looking for some clips for a video. He's very much so figured out the Nitro now. You know,
He did win 2
still-
games yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still equally as broken as it was before. You just have to shoot the wall a bit before you run in it now, you know? So, yeah, not concerned about them whatsoever. Sure, they might maybe not do as good in Grands, but I don't know. For a seasonal power ranking, I think 3rd is definitely even too low.
I think Boop's about to get cooked in the comments.
Mm.
Queasy
I
up third
think the
and Teeny and Chap as
Queasy and
seventh.
Seti above Chap and Teeny this season in a power ranking. I think that's, in the words of Coach Harry, that's illegal.
We're just
That's
going to
illegal.
see when it comes to grand finals. You know?
But
Yeah,
this
but
is
that's
not
not-
grand
it's
final
not-
prediction.
Hey, I
No,
took it
it's
wrong.
not.
I took it wrong.
You stink, man. Yes, this is not a prediction list. It's
But
not a
even
prediction
seven, I
list.
still think seventh's too low for a grand final prediction. That's still the case. Like,
But okay, you can't say power ranking, and then it still correlates to the final play. You can't say, okay, these are the best teams going into the World Cup, but you know what? I don't think they're gonna do well in the World Cup. Like,
No,
it's still
because
No,
correlates.
but it's
who's
a power. It's
performed the
based
best.
of like it's based off of what people have actually done up to this point. Like
it's not the
they
hypothetical.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. How many of
Yeah.
you put Giannis and Pixie or Walks and Pings in your top 10 list then?
I
I
put
put-
Walks and Pings
I
7th.
put Giannis and Pixie 10th.
I didn't put Janice and Pixie in, and I put Wax in. I had Wax and Ping, but I didn't have Janice and Pixie.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Pixie.
I mean, I feel like there's a few of you guys missing a few key ones as well that did well this season. You know, I'm just gonna put that.
No,
down.
yeah, there's one that's been missed that I want to talk about.
Yeah,
So
I
we
feel
were
like
talking about-
There is one. No, so afterwards, I'll ask people who they think should be in because there is one that I had on my list that's not in here, and I was like,
is it the same
it doesn't
one,
make sense.
probably?
It will be the same one as you, 100%.
Yes.
Okay, but yeah, now we exposed Boop, man. Boop's got a fucking prediction
Boop.
list, bro. Boop
Hey,
picked our
what-
list.
Yeah.
Our list would have looked
This-
better if it
You're
was.
acting
Yeah.
like
Send all the hate
this
to him.
is
Send all
worse.
the-
This
send all
is
the
you're
hate.
acting like this is worse than Harry saying that Peter and Poy won't making globals. Like, come on. Like, this, out of the outrageous statements on this podcast, this isn't that high up.
Hey, that was
but you
last.
got- you
Wait,
got the criteria wrong.
Harry. That was last season. It's a new season. It's a new
All I'm
season.
saying is,
I guess we
I had
can't
the
look at the second place last
Yeah.
season then. You know, last season.
No, I know. I had the criteria right for the rankings and my predictions. You just had the criteria wrong. You're just
Hey,
Rams
how many
predictions.
games have you won of the top 5 game? That's all I'm saying.
Oh, he's
No.
cooking you
Before
that one.
Reese came
Yeah.
back, you know, like
I had the Men in
You were
Black
playing the
pen
Farmers
in front of all
League
of our
before.
faces. That last week didn't happen. I didn't get
Farmers
4 out of
League,
5,
Farmers
right?
League without Reese.
Oh man. Okay. Let's take a look at number 2. Who was number 2 in the vintage power ranking? Malibuka and Mustache. The Major 1 champions consistently voted in the top 5, never dropping below 5th in any ranking. Everybody had them at least top 5 in their rankings. Number 2 spot for Malibuka and Mustache. Is that fair? Do we like that spot for them?
No, I think they should be 3rd. Like, measurably, literally by every measure, outside of the fact that they won 2 seasons ago, they've placed worse in every tournament than Chapentini so far.
Yeah, I had them at 4th, obviously because I had Harissa and I dropped high, but I definitely. Oh, don't worry, you're laughing, Mr. Queasy
I'm
Thomas
just-
third.
I'm
No,
chuckling
no,
to
no,
myself,
Mr. Queasy
Let me
Thomas
chuckle,
third.
let a man chuckle.
Yeah, no chuckling.
I'm in
allowed,
the
Mr.
safety of my own home. I can chuckle
This-
whenever I want to.
This podcast is a no
Do something, Harry.
laugh zone.
Do something.
No, but I agree. I think obviously if we're going off like star power and how good like Mustache and Malibuka are and can be, it's like obviously you put them in 2nd. For me personally, they're worse than Chapentini, as you said, recent. Even going off last season, if we're having that as like there's Decay as 11, you said, I would 100% say they're below. But I don't blame people for putting them this high. It's Mustache and Malibuka. Is there really much more you need to say? They're going to be in contention to win every FNCS basically from here out unless they're contested. It's just Mustache and Malibuka.
And I think to qualify even my own statement is that, the start of the season, they were contesting at the rig and fighting against Swizzy and Vanyak as well the whole time. So, their earlier placements could be looked at as well. They were fighting some of the best teams. Then they switched around duos for a while. So it's like, looking at the straight numbers, you could easily say, well, maybe they would have been better had they had a drop spot sorted and had they actually been playing with their normal duo too.
That's part of why. So I had them 3rd. It's weird because at times, it's weird because when I was looking at it, I was like, is 3rd too high for them? But then I'm like, no, it's not. Because you look at Malibuka Mustache, and of course it's Malibuka Mustache. I did feel like last season maybe people were playing too much into the Grim situation with them and being like they should have won, blah 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 blah. And so I was worried that maybe we were doing that again. But it's like you look at them this season, the rig is the rig. So they are the team landing at the best spot in the game. They have been doing good this season. It's like in a power ranking, top 3 is a no-brainer. In this case, them being number 2, I think it's a fair spot for them.
Yeah.
I can't add anything to that. I put them 2nd as well.
Yeah, I think 2nd's a good spot for them. I don't hate that too much. Or I don't think there'll be a surprise who number 1 is. But let's take a look at number 1. The number 1 ranked team in EU this season right now, Swizzy and Vanyak, the reigning champs, were voted first by 5 out of the 7 voters, never dropping below top 3. and of the 70 points available, they won 67 of them.
Who did put
Dang.
them
Didn't
first?
put them
Who?
first,
Yeah,
it's
who
crazy.
didn't put them first?
Should I name and shame?
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
this one is
difference.
fair.
And
Kinch
I
has
want
got
to
to be
know
one
who
of
they
them.
put in first instead.
Kinch and Jacob is my prediction. Kinch
Yeah.
and
No,
Jacob.
Kinch did. I think it's Mini
No.
and Jacob.
So
Jacob,
Mini,
definitely.
so Jacob had them at second. He put Malibuka Mustache first,
Mhm.
and Mini.
Oh,
Put-
I knew it.
I don't want to do
Oh,
Mini
no.
dirty,
Where did he put?
Oh.
Who did he put first? Squeezy and Thomas?
Mini put them at third, and he put
Ooh.
Teeny and Chap.
Oh, that's not valid.
Outrageous!
He
Now-
put
Did you see the
Teeny and Chap at-
nerfs?
That,
Then he's not making the videos on the nerfs.
Yeah,
I didn't even
he's
see
I-
it.
I feel bad.
How does he know about the nerfs?
They're not here to defend themselves. I feel bad now.
no. That's more valid
There's
than
no
Boop's
defending
list.
that.
So-
Yeah, that's more. Yeah, no, that's better. Than, no, Mini had
yeah.
a better list than Boop. 100%.
Unreal.
Yeah,
Mini-
yeah.
Don't
true.
not disrespect me like that.
Mini, oh, no, definitely Mini had a better list than you.
I think I want to
Yeah.
take lead on this, and sorry, I knew you were about to say something.
No,
I'd
it's
already
fine, it's
started. We are in the Swizzy and Vanyak era. We've been in the Swizzy era already. I feel like more people would have been talking about this had the Swizzy not been kicked or for being Russian from the Global Championships, because you look. I can't remember if I said this in one of the last podcasts, but I'll just reiterate it anyway. Out of the last 3 FNCS that have been online, Swizzy's won 2 of them. And the other one he didn't win was he was playing with Putrick, and Putrick's not great, and now he's all just selling NFTs or something online. So
The classic pathway for
and
washed
when he
players.
won, yeah, well, pretty much. And when he won with Putrick, he was like literally star player of
Yeah,
the
he was
entire
top of-
season.
Yeah.
He was top
He
of
was top
every
of
damage.
everything. Yeah,
And
The
Putrick was like
ratios were
middle of the
ridiculous.
pack.
Yeah.
30th or something. Like
Yeah.
I'm not no hate to Putrick. I know it's coming out as that, but like this was that win was strongly carried, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we're seeing this, and the placements this season: the Cash Cups, 10th, 3rd, 2nd, 2nd. The qualifiers, 12th and a 6th. Like
Number one on Series Point leaderboard.
number one series point leaderboard. If there was a series point leaderboard for Cash Cups, they'd be bloody first there as well. Like, by every measurable metric, they are the best right now, especially obviously coming from the reigning champs as well. And when I spoke to Swizzy after he won, just a couple of messages when I was working on the video for him, he's like, he's not demotivated by winning like a lot of players would be. He's just like, yeah, now I play, it's fun. Very kind of similar to Malibuka and Mustache when they won this season before. They were just like, we play tournaments because they're fun, not like super like grind focused crazy. It's just like, we enjoy this, we're going to keep going. So I don't see that momentum slowing down anytime soon.
That makes sense for a man that lost $100,000, right? The
I was gonna
mentality
say,
has to be
I know.
strong.
He's
I
got
would
to
have
make up
quit
for
at
it.
that point.
He does, yeah. I mean,
But that's
I
why
messaged him
Putrick's
about
gone the
that.
other way.
I messaged,
Not
Wow,
strong
true.
mentally, yeah.
Yeah.
I messaged him about the mentality of losing the 100k, and he was basically just like, yeah, it sucked. That was
I mean,
it.
it does suck. No,
Like,
losing 100k does suck.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
bro.
that doesn't
Yeah,
sound
yeah.
like a good thing to happen.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
I can't remember the words he specifically used, but it was like 3 words. I was like, all right, okay.
It was bad.
It was
Yeah.
not good. Yeah.
Yeah, we all had them at number 1 here at least. I mean, no brainer. Reese summed it up pretty perfectly. I mean, prediction list, results list, power ranking, they are ranking number 1 on everything. So, yeah, shout out to Susan Vanyak. I guess the next thing to discuss when it comes to EU is who was not on this list, who you think should be.
Where was CZB and Nathan?
That's
Where
my
were
one as well,
they?
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I had them on my list.
I had them on
my list.
8th. Like, I genuinely think this is the season for them that finally, like, we've seen them over the past, like, couple of seasons. They've been a good opens team. And when it comes to fan, they've done decent. Never insanely well, but decent enough, right? But this season, they have, every fans they've made, they've done at minimum like a top 20, but even for more so, you got a 3rd and last Duo Cash Cup, which they got a match history, which could win a lot of Duo Cash Cups, Now, that match history where they had an average placement of 5th, which is insane to even come 3rd in a Duo Cash Cup with that, is like, the only thing that they could struggle with is not getting DMRs with scopes. That is the only thing at Grand Glacier they could struggle with, in my opinion. It seems like when they do get, the setup and the loadouts they want, they know with their experience now of making enough Duo Cash Cups and FNCS finals now, they can actually play very well from this situation. And I think this is finally the season for them to prove themselves and, take the next step into potentially qualifying for globals.
So I did have them on my list in my initial one. And when I remembered about Queasy and Thomas, they were the team who ended up getting the boot. for me.
So
And
before
Yeah, what you
you
said?
continue, I was just gonna say, so on the original list, when
Mhm.
Reese's old results were there, Nathan and CZB were the 10th team. They beat Volko and Cringe. So it was they got pushed out by Reese changing his answers. It was that close. Like it was like
interesting.
a couple points in it.
So for me, when I was looking at them, I was just looking at like, firstly, I don't think they had aura coming into the season, right? So before this actual season and the performances, I'm like, you know, there was like 27th or something last grands or whatever it was. You know, I was like, that's minimum aura right now. So when I'm looking straight at placements, I'm looking at some of these other teams, like when you're talking about Queasy and Thomas and whatnot, and you have guys like that who are performing okay, not great, as we've kind of already qualified so far, and have aura coming in and have potential future aura also. I just couldn't justify keeping the CZB and Nathan in. So despite the crazy performances they've had.
Yeah, I was going to say their placement this season are insane. Like, this is just finals alone. You have first in eval, obviously eval wins, whatever, but second in Enduro Cash Cup, they didn't qualify to one, then 11th in FNCS finals. They had an 18th in Enduro Cash Cup finals, 22nd in FNCS finals, and then a third in Enduro Cash Cup finals. Like, it is just never, like, flopping, never really having... there you go. Never flopping, never really having that bad of a tournament, right? It feels like they qualify to everything. Their opens are consistent, their finals are consistent. To me, they have just been one of the best season.
I think they got really snubbed on our list because I think if you're doing a power ranking properly, no shade, of course, I think they should be like somewhere in the middle. Like I had them as I put them 5th, I think. Where did I put them? Yeah, I put them 5th on my list. I think if you're doing a power ranking based off of like, because again, they're one of those teams where it's like they're a very like pump fakey team because they're gonna do all this and probably like dud grands probably. I hope not, but like, you know what I mean? Like they're like then if I was predicting, I wouldn't predict them this high if I'm being honest because last season was the same. Like last season before grands, they looked really good. Like they were like topping most events. Like it was like them and Pink and Vico, right? They were like doing really good in everything. Come grand finals, you know, Grand Glacier, they dud. It's probably going to be a similar situation this season. I hope not, because I'd love to see them at Globals. But, like, yeah, they're a team where I think, based off of just, like, the results we've seen this season, like, it's hard not to put them in the top 10 for me. Because, yeah, they've just been so consistently good.
It's honestly just a lack of aura, man. Like, all these guys just need to be
more
more active and everything, to
do.
be cooler to the general audience and the general analysis people to put them in the list. But, I mean, it's funny, Levin, that you talk about, you know, the listing here. But you're forgetting a very good team that I'd be surprised to see if anyone mentioned it other than I did. And it's Wox and Pinks. Like, their Cash Cup placements this season have been insane. They've gotten a 3rd, a 2nd, an 8th, and they won an eval cup. Not that actually means much, but like their placements, I would say, is far above the cut of the rest of these other players that were mentioned. And I think I'm the only one that mentioned the top 10. You know, for the power ranking.
No, Wox and Ping. I had them as well. Wox and Ping, another team that like should be here, 100%. If you're doing a power ranking, like, and if anything, Wox and Ping have a greater claim than Nathan and CZB because Wox came 10th last grands. Like he did really good. Like Wox is one of those players that I feel like gets slept on in that sense where like they've performed really well. He's been really good. Did pretty decent last grands. Like I agree with you 100%. Wox and Ping should be in there. They got left off of a lot of people's list. Maybe again, it's just one of those things where it's just like forgotten about.
I should have, to looking back on it, I definitely should have added them. I think it's one of those things that you look at it and you look at some of the players and it's like, you know, the Camisettis, the Queasy Thomases, who haven't had as good of a season, right? If we're doing a clean slate and we're not thinking about anything else, they're 100% in the list, right? They're 100% going to be in the top 10 for sure.
Yeah,
there are a lot. What I find is really interesting between these two is the two teams who won both Qualifier 1 and Qualifier 2 for FNCS are not on our list.
And we haven't
kept off
talked about
Marine and Cade. We kept off Starkus and iFroze.
Oh, I forgot Starkus and iFroze. No,
my goats.
You know, they've won both qualifiers respectively, and we've left them off. So, is FNCS qualifiers dudded?
We've had many conversations about this. So I think
that was a rhetorical question.
Yeah. I think people should get the hint there. Let's get to NA. NA, I have to say, man, the NA list was so close. Like,
well, this is hard.
So close. In 10th place, Muzz and Trashy. Muzz finished 6th in damage dealt during the qualifiers. They finished 8th as a duo on the series point leaderboard. What do we think of Muzz and Trashy in 10th?
Before or after the XA?
Yeah, after the snake in it, I'm not so sure anymore.
Yeah, because I was actually going to leave them out, but then I was like, they've been such a good team this season, you can't leave them out, because in my head it's like, after everything that's happened, there's no way the duo can just be the same. You know, it's like after, you know, the snake thing that happened. But yeah, Muzz and Trashy. Obviously, Muzz, one of the like best fighters on NA, and he's always has been, and especially landing, you know, I mean, Pleasant Piazza has always been kind of a grief spot, and I don't know if this season's going to be much different. It will always get to a point where teams are like, oh, it's got loads of buildings, we can split it, and then both teams just get griefed and then get third parties from a bunch of teams around them. If everything goes fine and they get uncontested, for sure they should be in the top 10.
Yeah, I agree. I'm like a sneaky, I feel like I'm like the only person that likes Pleasant Piazza. I think if you can get Pleasant Uncon and like you're good, it's like a good enough spot to like
Agreed.
really do well from. And so hopefully we see that with them. But again, it's like, what are the vibes going to be like for these guys? It's a shame that now that's like a cloud over them, because NA is just so competitive this season. It's like so many good teams. It's hard to like stand out and shine, but like the fact that most people can like sit here and acknowledge that these guys have been really good says a lot about them in a season that's been so filled with like really good teams. So
I feel like Muzz as a player and like in placements, like to describe it is just 10. Right, like 10th place sounds about right for every single placement that he's had in everything so far with paper as well. It's like, yeah, they're not a top team to contend, but they're just always going to show up at that spot somewhere around the top 10 to top 15 area.
Muzz is someone who I always just don't know how he isn't winning FNCS every season. You know, like so individually talented. If you watch like literally any of his gameplay from any tournament, wherever it is, I'm yet to find like, what do you suck at a lot? Maybe he's just dumb. I don't know. I love Muzz, and I actually was watching globals with him. We were sitting in the seat next, we were just chilling watching. Love him, good lad. But I'm like, what do you suck at? Like, why are you not winning every FNCS? Is it like team chemistry, teamwork, whatever it was?
He doesn't really get the duos though either, right? Like for the
I think I was about to say, so I think that might be a bit of an issue, but at the same time, this might be his best chance to actually do well in Grands.
I mean,
this
might ruin it, mate.
Might have ruined it. Yeah. Up until this point, that would have been true until he potentially ruined it by getting rid of his teammate. But
yeah, no, Muzz and Trash are really good. Let's take a look at number 9. Let's get to number 9. Who is 9th place according to Fantasia? Pink and Miro.
Oh my.
Finished 5th on the series point leaderboard, tied for points with 10th, but beat Muzz and Trashy on a tiebreaker, as their highest position on any list was 6th. So they actually had the same amount of points as Muzz and Trashy, but they won the tiebreaker essentially because somebody had them 6th. I wonder who that was.
That's high. That's very high.
I ended up having them 11th, so they just missed out on my list.
Okay.
Yeah, it's weird because if you look at their placements in FNCS, they're good, but there's this weird like aura and vibe around them that they're just not going to perform to the level that you can expect out of Pink and Miro. And it's hard to really put my finger on why that's the case, but it just feels like something isn't working exactly as good as it could be.
I'm looking at my list, and if I'm comparing Pink and Miro to this name, it's hard to put them on that same level as all the other guys, right? Like consistency wise, feels like there's something hanging over them, like that even though they've done well when it comes to set lobby and the draw spot they're landing at, the other team just have had a better track record so far. I think it's the unknown, right? It's like you have a very experienced player in Miro with Pink, who's also very experienced. 2 very, very solid players who are probably top 5 in any duo that they place in their own region, but together you just don't know exactly how it's going to formulate and how the chemistry is going to work compared to some of the bigger names like Peter Bonpoyo and Yomzo Tayson, which you're looking at those names and you're like, yeah, those make sense, like they will do well 100%.
Yeah, I kind of disagree with this first bit of what you're saying, in that like I think results wise this season they are good enough to be in the top 10. Like they're good enough to be in like that range of like, whoever had them 6th, maybe like you put them like 6th to 8th. I feel like their results are pretty good enough for that. But I agree with the second part of what you're saying, in that like they're both coming off of, like when we talked about the decay before, right? And like you have a high starting point. They're both starting low, right? Both coming off of grand finals that they wouldn't be too proud of, right? Like, so it's like an uphill battle for those two, I'd say, in that sense. So I think like somewhere like in the bottom of the top 10 is like fair position for them based off of just how they've done this far. It'll be interesting to see like how people rate them when it comes to predictions, like actual predictions when we get to that, like before Grand. I'll be curious to see where people like sort of have them. But for the power ranking, them at 9th, I think that's fair. I like that spot for them.
I was about to say, looking at their placements, there's a lot of mid in there. You know, like they're 6th on series points, but their 2 FNCS placements were 7th and 19th. You know, and like even averaging that out, which is obviously not really a fair way to do it, you're immediately not even into a top 10. So I think like Cash Cup placements, some hit or miss as well. I think low on our list, and that's why I left them off. I think is pretty fair, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that's all right. Let's get to 8th.
Yeah.
I was waiting for someone to like say something, but I was like, let's get to 8th. Fair enough. Bugha and Aviv are in 8th place. Only duo on NA to have both their players in the top 5 for damage dealt, with Aviv leading the whole region during the qualifiers. Damage
He's
leader
locked
Aviv.
in.
He is on point this season.
This feels... Is this a bit low? I don't know. I feel like Aviv and Bugha have been fairly solid this season. I feel like they've been definitely, in my opinion, contention for at least top 5. And that surprises me, putting them that far down.
Is Bugha underrated?
I definitely...
It's a weird thing to ask, right? It's like, is Bugha underrated considering his long list of achievements? But like every season, I feel like I'm looking at Bugha. I'm like, okay, he's got a good teammate. He's playing with Aegis, for example. Okay, it's looking good, but then he doesn't actually come up to expectations. And then like now, where he actually is placing pretty well, it's like, I'm not. I've been hurt too often to believe. I feel like.
So I think when it comes to Bugha and Aviv this season, that's a good point where you're like, they can perform well early and then drop off. But I was looking at the placements. As soon as I saw that, I said I put them 7th, and I was looking. I was like, man, 6th. They did so good overall. I was like, how did I only put them this low? And then I just look at the people I put above them, and then I go, it's just literally like the top teams are so consistent right now.
Yeah. I think they, like, when I look at my list, I think I still probably would put them higher than where I initially put them on my list. I had them at 9th, but I would have bumped them up maybe 2 or 3, based off of the other people out there. I don't want to spoil the rest of the list though, but I probably would have bumped them up. But even then, it's like when I look at some of the people above them, I'm like, like these people are so good. Yeah, like these people are so good. But to answer what you're saying, Harry, yeah, I think low-key Bugha probably is underrated right now. His stocks aren't as high. Yeah, I don't think his stocks are as high. But maybe that's just because, again, it's like the region right now just looks so good.
It's so competitive. There are so many teams who are within contention to win FNCS and also qualify for globals. Like, it's going to be so fun to watch.
Hey, another week of Bugha hate for the commenters, for our NA commenters.
No. There's Bugha love.
We said he's underrated.
We gave Bugha love, but like the actual ranking, they're gonna say is Bugha hate. They're gonna say it's Bugha hate.
My God.
Viewers, I had him at 5th. Don't hate me.
I put him 10th. I might get hate.
Yeah.
Okay. At least I didn't have him in the lowest, and I'm happy now. Okay, I was not the lowest. Okay. Let's take a look at number 7. Who was number 7 in NA on the power rankings? Kanada and Cooper have still maintained good results, even with the bow nerf, consistently voted middle of the pack.
I think this is low.
Yeah.
Personally, I put them 4th, and I think this is kind of one of the Cuisine Thomas effect that I said on EU, where they just missed out on qualifier 1. They placed 53rd. And then in qualifier 2, they placed 4th. So when you look at that straight away, you go, okay, they just missed out. Had they made qualifier 1 finals, how good would they have placed? Yeah. Probably a top 10 or something. And then we'd immediately change our mind. I guarantee, like, their series points would be so different. We'd be like, oh, they're so good straight away. Then I think from the start of the season, they missed 2 cash cups as Cooper was away or something like that. And even then, like, Kanada still placed 3rd and 4th. I think he's playing with Skittles or something like that. And then they played another cash cup together and placed 4th again. Like, they've placed 4th, 3rd, 4th in different cash cups and finals and just missed out on 2 other ones. It's like, this is shockingly low, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I had them 7th, but I think what you just said is fair. I feel like that's enough to sway me to maybe move them higher. But even then, I'm looking like, who down? Like,
Kanada is my favorite IGL to watch because every game is just, they're good on Surge, they get to 50-50, and they have 300 mats, and you can literally, you have no idea what's just happened, and they skip another 5 minutes, and they come 5th. And it's just like, I don't know how the game happens. It's like the most scuffed game you'll ever watch. But the one thing they're never scuffed on is Surge. They're always above Surge, and they will just use their mats as their only resource to basically get Surge and good heals into endgame. But it's crazy to watch because you're like, just save a few more mats. You know, you don't have to do all this hard stuff. You don't have to jump through so many hoops to make good endgames. But I guess, you know, if that's the way Kanada is the best at playing at and gets the placements that he does, like, why would you change at all?
There's honestly just so much happening in NA at the top that they probably just lost the spotlight. You know, I have them on 8th on my list as well. But then looking at the placements, I probably should have put them higher. But it's just there's so much happening at the top. And looking at the teams, right? Like every single team above them on my list, personally, they've done something more than them this season. Like they'll be middle of the pack. Even though like 4th place isn't middle of the pack, but like the other ones have won tournaments or based first in FNCS qualifiers. We're like, okay, yeah, that's probably better than them placing 4th and 5th in the Dual Cash Cup 2 times in a row. But actually, it probably isn't if you think about consistency wise for power ranking.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, but I'm in the same boat.
And I know who I've missed. I know who I've missed.
And you were who I was talking about.
God.
You were who I was talking about. You missed somebody.
I missed.
Yeah,
I was looking through tournaments. I was like, wait a second.
Yeah.
7th, and my Booga's gone, and I'm like, who have I missed on this list? I know who I've missed.
You have missed.
I'm not gonna get hate. Yes.
Harry had a stinker. He did have a big
I'm curious to see who it is.
And his stinker's actually coming up next. Let's have a look at the 6th place team in NA according to the Fantasia Power Rankings. Acorn and Cold very narrowly missed the top 5, and they were left off of one person's list.
I wonder who that is.
And if they hadn't been left off of that person's list, they would be in the top 5. The points were so close. They missed out on 5th by 1 point. So literally, had so-and-so,
if we didn't have a fraud on the podcast, basically.
I genuinely just forgot them. I was like,
crazy for an FNCS winning team.
Yeah, I looked through my list again, and I was just like, because earlier this year, I was like, I was looking through, making sure to see who I missed. I was like, I don't see anyone who I missed. It took me looking at like a duo cash cup, because I was like, wait, there's got to be someone here, right? And I looked at a duo cash cup, I was like, oh, Acorn and Cold in 3rd place.
I remembered Caesar being Nathan and not Acorn and Cold.
If
there's any EU bias in, like, it's confirmed in that one.
Now there's an EU team that I put in my list instead of Acorn and Cold. So
I didn't.
Did the same. Yeah, we'll get to that.
Maybe I did mention Acorn and Cold though, so you know.
True. You didn't miss Acorn and Cold. I had Acorn and Cold at 5th. 6th for them.
I put them 6th.
Yeah,
5th too.
Not an upper bracket. That's all I'm saying. Not an upper bracket.
Not an upper bracket.
Highland is outplacing them currently in upper bracket.
See, they're not even a top 55, 54 team in the
Highland's
region,
better
honestly.
than them.
Yeah, no, like.
Okay, buddy. I mean, they are Acorn and Cold. That's the analysis you're getting from me today, man.
Who are those
Acorn
guys?
and Cold.
They do Teeny and Misha, or not me, Teeny and Chat from last season, drop a 30 bomb in lowers and then go up to uppers.
Yeah, probably.
You know who's not forgetting him? Trashy.
Trashy ain't forgetting. He definitely ain't forgetting. Poor Trashy.
What if Trashy just battle buses Muzz? Like, what if he just
I
like,
would love to see it.
What if Trashy's just like game 1? It's like, oh, my internet went. he just turns off his PC and goes out.
That'd be unreal.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so let's give some actual analysis. What do you think of Acorn and Cold this season? And sick for them. How do we feel about that?
They missed one qualifier where they were horribly stinky, and I don't know what reason it was, where they ended up placing like 700, 800 or something like that. And that alone just threw what would be a perfect season almost. Like qualifier 1, 11th. Good, but that's their worst placement outside of the stinky one in qualifier 2. Their cash cups, 6th, 3rd, 2nd, 8th. They're FNCS champions. Like, what more can you say than that?
Yeah, they're just really good. But somebody forgot them apparently.
Harry can't say anything about that, you know?
I didn't know who they were apparently. God,
I'm very curious to put Peterball and Pollo on your list. If
I think I put them in a fair point. I think I put them fair.
Yeah, I mean, Acorn and Cold are just the Acorn and Cold. I feel like again, same thing as we had with Kanada Cooper, right? Everyone else has had wins and things like that, but they've sort of been like cruising 4th, 5th, 3rd, 2nd, which just makes them not as memorable on the power rankings list. But they honestly should probably be top 3. Looking at that, just because they make up a bracket. It is what it is. More practice.
Yeah. Let's take a look at who was above them then. Who came 5th place in NA? That was our friends Reet and Ritual, were ranked as high as 1st place on one list and as low as 9th on another.
That's crazy.
ranked 5th in total eliminations during the qualifiers. So
Can we please name and shame who had them in first?
big
That is-
discrepancies between on the list there. Somebody had them in first. Yes, it was a shocker to me too. Where did you guys have
you
them?
put them first.
No,
Would have been bad if it was a
Yeah.
shocker for him
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
definitely not.
I put them 5th. I think last season they were the only team to rival Peterbot and Pollo, and I sort of rid the wave of that. Like they're a team that just garners aura across the map. Placer wise, I don't think that they've been as memorable placer wise this season. I might correct me if I'm wrong, but
They
it's a
came
team-
second in quad 2,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
like
So it's decent, but the rest of that, like they're just a team that's always gonna be expected to do well, and you just know they're gonna place in everything that they do when they actively do try to do so.
Yeah, I think basically like this season they've basically just been like 9th to 11th in most tournaments,
Yeah.
and I think if you're just going to do a power ranking this season, I just can't really put them higher than any of these other teams we're going to talk about. Obviously, they have aura from every season prior to that coming into this, but I actually ended up putting them 8th, so I put them quite low,
Wow.
and I just heavily biased where they've been placed in this season. Obviously, the second in qualifier 2, very very good, but the rest of their placements consistent, but not as consistent as everyone else.
yeah. I think middle of the pack for them is like a good spot. Maybe there'd be a conversation to have about like how much do you rate their circumstances going forward, like landing at Reckless, like the sort of things we were talking about with Vico and Flixie, where like you're maybe not as happy about Reckless, maybe you'd say same for them. But yeah, Rita and Ritual in there at 5th place. Let's take a look at number 4. This is where things start to get interesting. Number 4 team right now,
Ooh.
according to Fantasia, Yomzo and Tayson narrowly missed out on a higher position, but were the only team outside of the team that got first place to be in everybody's top 5.
I feel like this is low.
That's-
I feel like this.
super low.
I had them at second.
So that's like
felt
yeah. So again, that to me is really interesting. When I realized that, when I was like writing out the little things, like so the team that, without spoiling, one team got first place, right? And that team was in everybody's top 5 at the very least.
Yeah.
But outside of that team, Yomzo and Tayson were the only one that were in everybody's top 5, which means the team
I think
that
there's-
came second and third, some people had them outside the top. Like that's
That's-
very interesting to me. Yeah.
Someone messed up on the list because I'm looking at the rest of the teams.
Yeah,
in
I'm
the
looking
top
for-
five.
yeah.
Like, how do you
Like,
not
huh?
put these 3 teams in the top 5? That's insane.
Oh,
And-
I think I was one of the other ones that
Okay,
fell out of
let's-
the top
let's not get
5,
ahead of
but for
ourselves.
good
Let's not get
reasons.
ahead of
But we'll,
ourselves.
yeah, we'll come out of that.
For
at the end.
me, I think Yomzo Tayson is just a team that you just know will place well. The placements haven't been consistent for them. They've been in the top 10 for a decent amount of tournaments, but like not always in the top 3 or the top 2 or contending to win the tournament, which is probably why people put them that low. I put them 3rd personally because I don't think they're a team that has been like super dominant as I would have expected them to be if you asked me about them at the start of the season, because everything makes sense for them. But yeah, 4th is just near what I kind of put them at.
I mean, if you look at their placements, obviously apart from the first Duo Cash Cup, right? They got an 18th in the first Duo Cash Cup, then they won the next Duo Cash Cup 4th, then a 3rd, and then in the FNCS they got 17th in finals and then 6th in Duo Cash Cup. So
Yeah.
they're in and around constantly in the top 10 and at least the top 5 in some of them as well. I just think you look at the setup, right? As we talked about Cami and Seti, but with better placements. It's a top team with consistent practice at that spot, a team in EU who they can practice with, and one of the best spots on the map. It's Tayson and Yomzo, who are top players, and they've shown a lot this season for me to say, yeah, they are one of the favourites going into FNCS.
So you said you had them second?
I had them second, yes.
Interesting. Cool. I had them 4th on power rankings because the teams above them have had better placements than them this season. But I really like Tayson and Yomzo. I think they are going to be one of the best teams in Grands. I think they've looked like one of the best teams this season. Their spot's really good. Even though you could make the whole argument of like maybe from a decay standpoint, they're not coming from the best point. Obviously, newer duo, and then both of their last Grands weren't crazy good. Not crazy bad either, but not crazy good. Yeah, it's Yomzo and Tayson. Really good. I'm a big fan.
For sure.
I don't know if there's
You're
much
a
more to add
Tayson
to
fan?
that, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, who would have thought? Who would have thought? I don't get that as much anymore. I used to always get the whole like, oh, Levin's
not in the
riding
region.
Tayson. No, but even like the past like year, it's not been that bad. I used to get it a lot in chapter 3. Chapter 3 and like late chapter 2, like oh my god,
You were
Levin's
just
always
riding
talking
the
about Taysom.
Taysom aura, you know.
It's
mean,
been
how
harder
could
and
you
harder
not,
to
bro?
justify it, you know, these
True,
days.
Yeah.
true. Yeah. What a shame. All right, let's look at number 3 then. Let's get to the top 3. Who was third place?
So these are obvious, yeah.
Peterborough and Poyo.
Yeah.
Peterborough and Poyo. The reigning champions sit at number 3 after beating Iomzo and Tayson by 1 point. So they literally, it was so close between them and Iomzo and Tayson. If somebody had put them like one position higher, it would have been tiebreaker. But their highest placement was second. So nobody had them first on their list. The highest they were placed was second on any lists. But based off of what we know, somebody also had them lower than top 5.
I had them 6th.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me. I wasn't the
Okay.
Peterborough
I thought-
hater. It was,
Bro, I think it's
wasn't-
valid, you know.
Talk to us
Like,
about
they've
your
been-
6th place position then, Reese.
They've been really hit or miss, but like more hit and more miss than most other teams. In particular on this list, like when you've got winning the second qualifier, nuts. Missing out in qual the first one, unfortunate. Again, it was a close miss, so kind of similar to said to some other ones, but a miss nonetheless, which the teams above this have not done. So very important to note. Same thing with the Cash Cups. When they've made the finals, like crazy, a 4th and a 3rd, but then they've missed 2 Cash Cup finals as well at the same time. So it is kind of just they've been really good in the tournaments they made finals, incredibly consistent, or they've just not made it at all, which I think their aura from last season hurts them in my eyes here, because last season, not qualifying to something. Are you kidding me? You know, they had such a good streak that now when I see them not make the first qualifier, when I see them not make like 2 Cash Cup finals, I'm not saying they're shit by any means, obviously, but it's almost like it's like a stain on them when the other teams are just doing so good and so consistently this season as well. It's harder to put them above any of the other ones.
That to me, so last season's dominance to me is why I think they should be higher. Like, again, going back to the decay thing, right? They were like number 1 by far for sure. So for me to drop them that far to 6th, I think that's too low. I think that's too low for them.
I think
they're landing at the
looking
best
my
spot.
list, I would have switched them to like maybe 4th.
They got
when I'm going
rigged.
back
They
through
got
it,
the
but
best spot. They're looking. You're right. They have had some misses this season, but when they've hit really good. They're landing at the
Absolutely.
best spot. They were the best team in the world last season. For me, they still have to stay in the top 3. So I had them 3rd.
I think for a power ranking, I think I would put them up to 4th from where I have them now, just looking at it again.
Yeah.
I don't think I could justify a top 3 for them based on this season specifically.
No, I agree. I had them at 4th as well for the same reason. Like, you look at I had Tayson and Iomzo above them, right? But you look at the teams above them, it's like those teams are, well, especially when we get to the top 2, they are far and away the best 2 teams on the region so far. You know, I think it's not really close at the moment. I do think Peterborough and Poyo, obviously landing Rig, going to be very good for them. They're going to be able to get, they're going to be able to get their pop-off games they need. Even though in Grand Finals they didn't actually have the pop-off games, but landing in the sand area, having the coin as well, they're going to be able to play aggressive when it comes to later game as well with it. I just think they're obviously in contention to perform insanely well as FNCS, but as you said, Reese, you wouldn't see it last season, but they had some dud tournaments, which you'd never expect out of them.
Yeah, I mean, Reese is sounding like the average NA pro these days, right? Like, see, they're no longer landing Grim Gates. They're gone now. They're washed.
No.
But
Don't disrespect me like that. These guys are the goats. I'm just saying, if we're putting a power ranking from this season, I have no justifiable reason to put them above the people we have above them. Like,
that's valid. I put them second because I just think there's the one of the you mentioned it with Swizzy and Vanya, right? Like, they didn't put the foot off the pedal. These guys did very clearly, right? So they're still holding back a little bit, and in the recent form, so the first half of the season, shit. Second half of the season, hey, all of a sudden, hey, these guys are pretty good, and all of a sudden they're placing again. They're finding the mojo. They're putting in the effort again, and I think if you redid the season starting from now, they'd probably be in the top 2 easily, or top 3 easily.
Yeah. I still don't know if I agree with Reese there. I think you can put them.
Yeah.
I think you can put them above
4th.
almost
This is in his
anyone.
Coach Harry era.
I think you can put them above anyone on a power ranking based other than the top 2 that we have now, which I think we all know who it is, but we'll get to it. Just from the perspective of like, yes, obviously power rankings are like more weighted to like how things have been this season, but they've still had good results this season. But there is an element in power rankings of like the reality of, you know, the future and what you predict and like that context. And like Peterborough and Poyo are like Peterborough and Poyo, and they're like at the best spot in the game, and they're still like dominating most often. I don't know.
Yeah, but the disagreements between do we put them third or do we put them fourth, which is like
exactly.
Fair enough. Let's look at number 2. Who is the number 2 ranked team in NA this season according to Fantasia? Clix and Veno take the second spot on the ranking after an impressive first season for Veno on NA so far. It came incredibly close to ranking first.
Who had them outside the top 5? Like that is
Shall I name and shame?
Crazy.
Yeah.
Shall I name and shame on this one as well? Who didn't have Clix
I put
and
them
Veno?
fourth. I think that's probably what made the difference.
I put them first.
I think it's
But outside top 5 would be insane if someone actually did that.
I put them. Yeah, I put them first, and to me, it's like
Delays.
everything is just set up for this to be the season, you know, for Clix. It is, you have an insane landing spot where you're going to get forecast majority of the games. You have a consistent game plan with
smiling.
consistent game plan with Surge. You like, I think this is, if there's ever a season for Clix to win, it's this season, and they are going into grand finals, in my opinion, as the best team right now in NA.
What are you smiling at, Levin?
I saw who put them in 6th. And yeah, man.
Shame them.
Should name and shame them. Name and shame.
It was the same person that had Reet and Ritual first.
ooh.
Oh,
What?
Yeah.
Jacob? There's no way it's Jacob.
Anyway, man, let's talk about Clix
Yeah.
and Veno, man.
Oh,
Clix and Veno, I mean, I know Veno doesn't believe and he doesn't like the fact that people are rating them so highly, but like, just don't play as good then, mate. Like, you know what I mean?
stop being
Like-
so good.
Like
Yeah.
Veno, like people are like, oh, you guys, we're predicting you to win FNCS, and Veno's like, what? People need, like, you're stupid if you predict. It's like, yeah, like you're winning every event, mate. Like, what are we supposed to do? Just ignore it.
yeah,
Like, and don't get me wrong, if you want to extrapolate and look at grands, then yes, there are some concerns maybe still that we would get into in a conversation more suited towards grand finals. But based off of what we've seen this season, they have been far and away one of the top 2 teams in NA, easily.
I like you're about to say you're about to go far and away the best team, and then you're like, wait, hold on, that's
No. I wasn't
No,
gonna
no.
say. I wasn't gonna say the best team because I know who's number 1, and I had that team number 1. But I was gonna say I didn't know how to like segment them away.
Yeah,
like, you know.
I felt
was
like
gonna
you
say
were going
just
down that
one of
route,
the-
and it would be so easy to say that. But yeah,
I was,
maybe
I
not.
was,
Like,
I was gonna say.
crazy.
I was initially gonna say find away one of the best teams, but it's like we're talking about a top 10 of all these teams are the best teams.
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
region,
yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think like if you obviously it depends how much you weight FNCS. If you weight FNCS more than Cash Cubs, you would say these guys have been the best by far because 1st and 5th, like that's nuts. I say by far, but the other team has also placed very well, so it's not necessarily by far. But yeah, just insane placements this season. I am slightly concerned for grands, as we mentioned, but that's not what this list's about. So
True.
Yeah.
It's not what it's completely about. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, sorry, Boop. It's all about that for you.
yeah.
But yeah.
For me, it is. It's the biggest tournament of the season.
So you think
Yeah,
Clix and Veno are going to come fourth in Grands Boop?
Yeah, I think they're going to come fourth in grand finals. I think it's pretty valid.
He doesn't even believe it when he's saying it.
I mean it. I'm saying it with vindication.
Oh yes, they will come forth, guys.
Yes, they will. They will.
Yeah.
So for Clix and Veno, I think for them it's a matter of how much they can keep the consistency up, right? If you are on Twitter 24/7, you'd say they're the worst team based on how many times Veno has been crashing out on Clix's head. The nicotine withdrawals potentially being affected. Like, how would that affect their legacy? Only time shall tell. Although I saw an IRL stream where they went to literally drive to a gas station to buy strong ass nicotine, and Veno's all high on that shit. So honestly, I think they'll do well. I think maybe fourth was a little bit too low. I did put Eom's Own Taste above them, but this was more of a grand finals thought than the prediction for our ranking and placements.
Admitting your list shit. That's what we like to hear.
that's good.
Well,
Best tournament of the season.
he's not got the worst NA list. We've already established he's not
Dang.
got the worst
Yeah.
NA list.
I didn't even the worst EU
Dang.
list either. It was great.
No, yeah, the
Both
worst
of them.
EU list for
Nah,
sure.
Yeah,
it
I
was
had the
great
worst
for
EU
both.
list.
Nah, Mini minus
yeah.
was
No, Minis was good. Mini had a good. Yeah. Go respect Mini, man. Mini had a good.
Respect, put some respect on
It's
the
some
mini.
respect on Mini Minor, mate.
Nah.
Clix and Veno, I mean, I'm really excited about them. I hope they like can keep this level up. For like if Clix is going blow for blow with, you know, for the FNCS title this season, that would be sick. Like,
Yeah.
Very
it would
much
be
so.
really, really fun. If we're like going
Fortnite
into like
needs
game
that.
10 and Clix is first place by like 50 points, like that would be sick. So hopefully we can get that. Let's take a look at the number one team that I think we all know who it's going to be. We've talked about them a bit already.
And it's Savage and Mongrel. No, it's not Savage.
Batman Booga and Rapid, your number one team according to the FNTasia Power Rankings. After a super impressive season so far, Batman Booga and Rapid narrowly take first place spot, winning out by only 1 point. So if Boop had moved them up, then then they would have been second.
If anyone said at the start of the season, Batman Booga and Rapid are going to be the best team in NA going into upper brackets, like I need what you're having. I need what you're taking, because no one could ever have seen this. And I mean, there's one thing to say, and it's zero ping. Genuinely, you ask Rapid.
Zero ping OP?
Yeah, zero ping OP. Like Rapid has said multiple times that zero ping is the reason why they're performing so much better now. Generally, obviously, like it's going to be a bigger thing, right? But obviously, it's made a huge difference for them, and it's crazy. Like I have never like Batman Booga is better than Booga. You know that's where we're at right now, and it is.
It's crazy that the guy at the top of our list is currently infringing an IP as we speak. You know,
he should get sued at this point. Yeah.
I was gonna say he wins global championships.
He's infringing too.
True.
Yeah.
He wins global championships, and Warner Brothers is just going to put a cease and desist out on him. Like, it's for the storyline, all you're going to see is Epic are going to start putting zones max distance away from him every single time, just to ensure that they don't have a legal issue on their hands.
It's funny because we obviously spoke about Batman Booga the other day, right? When we were like making the whole joke of like he is the real Booga on the region now, and the zero ping clearly has like helped in terms of just like making them, you know, a really good team, and it's like so important for them. But it's interesting to me that like in globals, I'm pretty sure Batman Booga did all right in globals. Like he came like top 10, no? I'm trying to check the leaderboard of where Batman Booga came. He came 14th. I think on one of the qualifier days, maybe he did better on one of the days before. But this is a team that like I'm actually really excited about in like the bigger picture of not just like this season they're doing. Like this could now be a team that you put in that conversation of like just staple top NA teams now if they can keep a good run going into global. So big ups to Batman Booga, man. Really impressed by him and Rapid this season.
I like also before anyone talks about the ping stuff, remember you're still shit. You going zero ping won't make a difference for this list specifically. But I mean, these guys are the embodiment of hard work. Like Batman Booga is 24 hours streaming solo cash cups. Rapid is one of the few players in NA that plays every single EU eval cup as well and plays it with whoever you want to, right? Like these guys put in the work, and finally when they get put into a position where you know they can go zero ping, it's realized it's not. You could have probably predicted this. In terms of how well they've been doing, and plus the hard work and everything on top of that, you know, this is the result of everything combined.
Yeah, I think just to speak on the actual results, just if any listeners don't know where they play so far, FNCS qualifiers, 5th and a 3rd, which is really good. So very close to the 1st and the 5th that Clix and Vino have had. However, their cash cups, they've been 1st, didn't qualify, a 1st and a 2nd. So nuts. That's insane consistency.
Yeah.
I mean, if Peterbot and Poe were doing that last season, everyone would be saying they're the best duo in the world, you know. And it's crazy that, you know, Batman Booga and Rapid, a team who, they have been working hard, but we're never in conversations for, you know, winning an FNCS, sometimes in conversations for top 10. And they've just turned it up a level to the point now they are genuinely one of the two best teams, in my opinion, in NA. And it is crazy to see.
It's crazy that the glow up as well. I think if anyone remembers that one clip of them in that one grand final, I think last season or the season before that, where they were 1v2'd by a guy and they just missed every single one of their shots in the first game of grand finals. The come up since that point is incredible, honestly.
Yeah. No, big ups to those guys. That is our list. Anybody on this? Anybody get left off that you want us to see on this list for NA?
Blackstone Mixon.
Yeah, you and Brew both voted for them, right? I don't think I
put Blood Mixon and Ryzen Ages on my list that were missing.
I had Ryzen Ages as well.
I had Ryzen Ages, but 10th. So
I had them.
I had Blackstone Mixer in 10th. both of those teams, I was obviously I forgot Acorn and Cold, but those are the two teams I had in between 10th, right? I think Blatcher and Mixon obviously coming second in the qualifier 1, I think kind of goes under the radar because they had a worse qualifier 2 where they were contested. That's going to be the biggest problem, the fact they're going to get contested by Quanti and Yapko, which is pretty a weird
Polish
situation.
Polish violence.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
really get this whole thing. You're ruining it for EU. You're ruining all the EU teams qualify.
That's all you care about, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I want all of them to qualify. But yeah, you know, we saw what Blatcher and Mixon did on EU. You know, end of chapter 4, right? We saw how good they are, and it's good to see they still have that going into this season as well, showing the capabilities and the scene they have coming second in one of the qualifiers.
I think they were just a bit too stinky and everything else to put them in the reality. Like, you know, they did second, sure, but every other tournament, they've made every single finals, but they've not played well in any of them outside of that. So
Yeah, but they're from
kinda
EU,
like-
so you're gonna add that in. You know.
Oh
add
yeah,
that bit
I mean
in.
that's why they were just off my list though.
Yeah, true. Mongrel and Savage.
Mongrel and Savage should have been there, but that's the story for
Did
another day.
anyone have Mongrel and Savage in their list?
Nobody had Mongrel and
I
Savage.
had them on my list, man. Like,
Yeah, I'm asking-
I don't know why it's weird. It's different for you, but in my list they were there. They were there.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
were first in mine.
I mean, if
Yeah.
someone put Batman Boogan, I mean, I know one person did put Reading Rituals, but if other than that person, anyone else didn't put Batman Boogan Rapping in first, I'd be very surprised.
I put them second.
No, so yeah, some
I'm
people
not
had.
surprised.
I think Clicks and Veno were first on 2 lists, maybe. I can
Interesting.
check, double check. Yeah, Clicks
I-
and Veno were first for Harry,
Yeah, myself.
Minnie, and then somebody else as well.
Yeah, I just maybe that was more my grand's feeling than pure like doing a bit of you there. But I just think Clicks and Vino to me are the best team at the moment in NA.
I feel like we keep seeing the word aura. Like we just gotta, we need to get a counter up for that word because like that's what comes down to it when people do predictions is like how
Yeah.
popular are they?
True,
How much
Batman Boogan's
mega
popular.
aura do they have?
Yeah,
which is why we do power rankings
Yeah.
instead.
aura rankings next week.
We will
in
do
the comments.
Yeah, in the comments.
Get your own power.
Aura
Yeah,
ranks.
let us know. Let us know what your list would be in the comment section below. Again, based off of power rankings, not predictions, and not just only results. Let us know what you didn't like about our official list. We'll post our list on social media as well, so you guys can see it more clearly. But yeah, we got tournaments to play, skin cups and whatnot. So we're gonna wrap up this
Important ones.
very important tournament. So we're gonna wrap up now. Appreciate you guys all for hanging out. We will be back next week's episode to talk about grands. Do you guys want to do like the bracket again? We did the bracket
Yes.
again. Maybe we did it.
Yes.
Maybe we can use
Do
our
the
power rankings as like seeding for the
Seedings,
bracket.
yeah.
Yes.
We wouldn't have enough
Perfect.
teams for it, but yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's fine. We'll figure something out. Either way, thank you very much. We will talk to you all very, very soon. Peace out.
Bye bye.